Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Read. So in this video, we will see what if Harry discovered he was the heir of Peverell and Slytherin at age 2 and took control of the wizarding world. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Ashes of the Innocent. The graveyard stank of death. Harry hung from the marble headstone, ropes cutting into his wrists, watching Wormtail complete the ritual with trembling hands. The cauldron bubbled and hissed. The bone of the father, unwillingly given. The flesh of the servant, willingly sacrificed. Peter's scream still echoed off the tombstones. And now the blood of the enemy, forcibly taken. The cut on Harry's arm throbbed in time with his heartbeat. The Dark Lord shall rise again, Wormtail whimpered, cradling his bleeding stump. Greater and more terrible than ever before. The potion turned white-hot. Then crimson. Then something darker than black, a color that hurt to look at directly. Harry had been afraid before. The basilisk. The dementors. 100 smaller terrors across 14 years of a life that had never been kind to him. But this fear was different. This was the cold certainty that he was about to watch something monstrous be born, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The cauldron exploded. Steam and dark magic billowed outward. A figure rose from the ruins, tall, skeletally thin, with skin like bleached bone and eyes the color of fresh blood. Lord Voldemort drew his first breath in 13 years and smiled with lipless satisfaction. "Robe me," he commanded. Wormtail scrambled to obey, one-handed and weeping. Harry watched the Dark Lord examine his new body with clinical detachment. Long fingers flexed. That terrible face tilted, testing the neck. Voldemort retrieved his wand from Wormtail and caressed it like a lover. "I can touch you now, Harry Potter." The words were almost gentle. Voldemort crossed the distance between them in 3 strides and pressed one cold finger to Harry's scar. Pain. Not the familiar ache that came with proximity or the sharp stabs of his visions. This was pain beyond anything Harry had experienced, beyond anything he had words for. It felt like his skull was splitting open, like molten iron was being poured directly into his brain. He screamed until his throat tore. And then something answered. Deep in the spaces between realities, in the void where entropy and creation danced their eternal waltz, something vast and ancient stirred. The Phoenix Force had existed before stars. It would exist after the last black hole evaporated into nothing. It was death and rebirth given form, the fundamental truth that destruction and creation were the same thing viewed from different angles. It did not think as humans understood thought. It did not feel as humans understood feeling. But it noticed. A soul that was not one soul. A fragment of something twisted and wrong, lodged like a splinter in the mind of a child. An abomination against the natural order, a piece of existence that refused to participate in the cycle. The Phoenix Force reached across dimensional barriers with the casual ease of a human brushing away a cobweb. And it burned. Harry's scream changed pitch. Voldemort stumbled backward, his triumphant expression curdling into confusion. The boy's scar had split open, black blood pouring down his face, but that wasn't what made the Dark Lord retreat. Fire was pouring from the wound. Not red fire or even white fire, this was something else entirely, flames that seemed to exist in colors that shouldn't be possible, that hurt to look at the way staring at the sun hurt. The ropes binding Harry didn't burn away, they simply ceased to exist, unmade at the molecular level. Harry fell to his knees, still screaming, clawing at his forehead. The fire spread, down his face, across his shoulders, consuming his robes and then his skin and then stopping, somehow, at the boundary of his self. He burned without being burned. He was the fire and the fire was him. The Death Eaters who had been operating in response to their dark mark stopped cold. Some of them ran immediately, survival instinct overriding loyalty. The smart ones. Voldemort raised his wand. "What is this?" What have you done? Harry couldn't answer. He couldn't think. The pain had transcended pain and become something like ecstasy, like standing in the heart of a star and finding it comfortable. He could feel the fire examining every part of him, burning away something he hadn't known was there, a darkness behind his eyes, a voice that sometimes whispered in his sleep, a cold presence he'd carried so long he'd thought it was just part of being Harry Potter. The Horcrux in his scar screamed as it died. Voldemort felt it. His newly regenerated body convulsed as 1/7 of his soul was unmade. For the first time in decades, he experienced genuine terror. Kill him, he shrieked at his Death Eaters. Kill him now. Avery was the first to obey. His killing curse streaked toward Harry, green light that had ended countless lives. The flames rose to meet it. The curse didn't deflect or absorb, it simply ended, its magic unraveled and consumed. Harry rose to his feet, and his eyes were no longer green. They blazed with that impossible fire, and when he looked at Avery, really looked at him, he saw everything. He saw a boy who had been cruel to house elves because it made him feel powerful. A young man who had tortured muggles for sport and called it tradition. A father who had taught his children that some lives mattered more than others. A Death Eater who had murdered 17 people personally and assisted in the deaths of hundreds more. The Phoenix Force passed judgment. Avery didn't have time to scream. One moment he existed, the next, he was ash on the wind. What are you? Voldemort's voice cracked with something too close to fear. Harry turned to face him. Words came from his mouth, but they weren't entirely his own, something older spoke with him, through him. I am what you made. I am what you deserve. I am the fire that purifies. He took a step forward. Voldemort apparat. The crack of displaced air was almost anticlimactic. The most feared Dark Lord in a century, freshly resurrected at the height of his power, had fled from a 14-year-old boy. The remaining Death Eaters followed their master's example. Some made it. Others, the ones who had killed with particular cruelty, who had reveled in suffering, whose souls were dark enough to register as wrong to the Phoenix Force's senses, did not. And then Harry was alone in the graveyard, surrounded by cooling ash and a single body that hadn't deserved any of this. Cedric. The fire dimmed. Not extinguished, Harry could feel it still, banked embers in his chest, a presence in his mind that hadn't been there before, but controlled. Contained. His knees hit the dirt beside Cedric's corpse. I'm sorry. The words felt absurdly inadequate. I'm so sorry. Cedric's eyes stared at nothing. 17 years old. A good person. Dead because Harry Potter hadn't been fast enough, smart enough, strong enough. Not your fault, something whispered in his mind. The voice wasn't words exactly, more like impressions, emotions translated into meaning. Blame the murderers, not the murdered. Who are you? Harry asked aloud. The answer came as an image, fire and wings and something so vast it made galaxies look small. And underneath that immensity, something almost like warmth. Almost like recognition. I am what I am. And now, so are you. Harry didn't understand. He was exhausted and grieving and terrified and exhilarated all at once. His scar, the scar that had defined him since infancy, had stopped hurting for the first time in his memory. The constant low-level ache he'd grown so accustomed to he'd forgotten it existed was simply gone. He grabbed the Triwizard Cup from where it had fallen. Still a portkey, presumably. Still his way home. Take the body back, Harry muttered to himself. Tell them what happened. Figure out the rest later. He gripped Cedric's cold hand, refusing to leave him behind, and touched the cup. The hook behind his navel pulled. The arrival was chaos. One moment the crowd was celebrating, waiting for their champion to emerge victorious. The next, Harry Potter appeared clutching a corpse, covered in blood and ash, his eyes still flickering with otherworldly fire. The screaming started almost immediately. Harry barely registered it. The world felt distant, muffled, like he was experiencing it through thick glass. He was vaguely aware of people rushing toward him, of wands being drawn, of Dumbledore's voice cutting through the din with commands he couldn't quite parse. Someone tried to take Cedric's body from him. Harry's grip tightened reflexively. No. His voice came out strange, layered, as if multiple people were speaking in unison. His family. Only his family. Amos Diggory's scream when he reached them would haunt Harry's nightmares for years. Arms wrapped around him from behind. Harry tensed, the fire surging, but the embrace was familiar. Soft. Desperate. Harry. Hermione's voice cracked on his name. Harry, you're alive, what happened? What happened to you? He couldn't answer. The fire was too close to the surface, too eager. If he opened his mouth, he wasn't sure what would come out. Dumbledore was there, blue eyes sharp behind half-moon spectacles, one not quite raised but not lowered either. Harry. I need you to tell me what happened. He's back. Harry's voice steadied, became his own again. Voldemort's back. The cup was a portkey. Wormtail did a ritual. And then. He trailed off. How could he possibly explain what had happened next? And then what, my boy? Something found me. Harry met Dumbledore's eyes. Something big. Something that burned the thing in my scar. The headmaster's expression flickered. Surprise, then suspicion, then carefully controlled neutrality. The thing in your scar. You know what I'm talking about. The certainty came from nowhere, or rather, from the fire, which showed him truths he had no business knowing. You've known for years. You've known what he put in me. For just a moment, Albus Dumbledore looked like a man confronted with his own sins. Then the mask slid back into place. We should continue this conversation somewhere more private. Damned right we should. Mad-Eye Moody stumped through the crowd, his magical eye spinning wildly. Potter looks like he's been through a war. Get him to the hospital wing. Get him. Harry turned to look at Moody, and the fire in his chest screamed. Wrong. This was wrong. This face, this voice, this man, all of it layered over something dark and twisted and malevolent. Harry could see through the disguise like it was tissue paper, could see the truth burning beneath. You're not Moody, he said. The imposter's wand came up fast, decades of dueling reflexes, but Harry was faster. Not with a wand. He didn't need a wand anymore. Fire erupted from his outstretched hand and caught the fake Moody full in the chest. The screaming intensified. People dove for cover. Dumbledore's wand was in his hand, but he hesitated, paralyzed by the impossibility of what he was seeing. The imposter burned. His polyjuice failed, flesh bubbling and transforming even as it charred. By the time the body hit the ground, there was nothing left but a skeleton wrapped in blackened robes and the melted remains of a hip flask. Silence. Harry stood there, arms still extended, orange flames dying around his fingers. His breath came in ragged gasps. He had just killed a man. Incinerated him in front of hundreds of witnesses. He should feel horrified. He should feel something. All he felt was the Phoenix Force's grim satisfaction, and his own terrible certainty that whatever that thing had been, it had deserved to burn. Barty Crouch Jr. Dumbledore's voice was barely above a whisper. He was staring at the body with an expression Harry couldn't read. He was supposed to be dead. He was supposed to be in Azkaban, and then dead. He was disguised as Moody all year. Harry's voice sounded hollow to his own ears. I don't know how I know that, but I do. He put my name in the goblet. He helped bring Voldemort back. The crowd had gone from screaming to deathly silence. Every eye was fixed on Harry, and in those eyes he saw fear. Raw, primal terror. They were looking at him the way they should have looked at Voldemort. He couldn't deal with this. Not now, not yet, not while Cedric's body was still cooling on the ground and the fire was still whispering about all the wrongs it could burn away. I need to go, Harry said. I can't, the hospital wing. Dumbledore's voice had regained its authority. Mr. Potter needs medical attention immediately. Everyone else, please remain calm. The ministry will be notified. There will be an investigation. But for now, let us attend to the wounded. Harry let himself be led away. Hermione stuck to his side like a burr, her small hand wrapped around his, apparently unconcerned by the residual heat radiating from his skin. Somewhere behind him, Amos Diggory's sobs continued, broken and helpless. He'd killed someone. He'd killed someone, and the only thing he felt about it was the nagging sense that there were still so many more who deserved to burn. The hospital wing was quiet. Madame Pomfrey had done her examination with trembling hands, her diagnostic spells returning results she clearly didn't understand. Harry's body temperature was elevated but stable. His magic was present but different, hotter, brighter, wrong according to every metric she knew. His scar, the cursed scar that had never healed, was suddenly just a scar. Dead tissue. No residual dark magic whatsoever. I don't understand, she kept muttering. I don't understand. Neither did Harry. They'd given him a bed, a sleeping potion he didn't take, and privacy they didn't mean. He could feel people watching from the shadows, order members, probably, guarding him or containing him depending on your perspective. The fire didn't mind. It could burn them all if they tried anything. That thought should have scared him. Instead, it felt like a simple statement of fact. Harry. Hermione had snuck past the watchers. Of course she had. She was the cleverest witch of her age and she'd broken more rules for him in 4 years than most people broke in a lifetime. You should be in bed, he said. So should you. And yet here we are. She perched on the edge of his mattress, close enough to touch but not quite touching. Her brown eyes were red-rimmed from crying. Everyone's terrified of you. I know. I'm not. She said it firmly, like she was convincing herself as much as him. I'm scared for you. That's different. Harry turned to look at her properly for the first time. In the dim light of the hospital wing, she looked older than 14. Exhausted and brave and stubborn. Something happened to me, he said. Something I don't understand. I can feel it inside me, Hermione. It's like there's a fire where my heart should be, and it wants things. It wanted to kill those Death Eaters. It wanted to burn Crouch. What else does it want? The question cut through his confusion. Trust Hermione to ask the practical question. Harry closed his eyes and looked inward. The Phoenix Force was there, a burning presence coiled around his consciousness. It wasn't separate from him, it was part of him now, woven into the fabric of his being so thoroughly he couldn't tell where he ended and it began. It wants to burn things that are wrong, he said slowly. Corruption. Evil. Dark magic. It can feel them, and it wants them to stop. That doesn't sound bad. It doesn't stop wanting. Harry's voice dropped. There's so much corruption, Hermione. In the ministry, in the old families, in the laws themselves. If I let it do what it wants, I'm not sure it would ever stop burning. Hermione was quiet for a long moment. Then she took his hand, hot, hotter than human flesh should be, and held it anyway. Then we'll figure out how to control it, she said. That's what we do, isn't it? Impossible problems and last-minute solutions. We'll research. We'll experiment. We'll find out what this is and how to manage it. What if it can't be managed? Then we'll find that out too. Her grip tightened. But you're still Harry. You saved Ginny from the basilisk. You saved Sirius from the Dementors. You went into that maze for Cedric's honor, and you brought his body back for his parents. Whatever this thing is, it chose a good person to bond with. Harry wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe he was still the person she saw, still the Harry Potter who cared more about his friends than power. But the fire disagreed. The fire knew what he'd felt when he'd burned Avery, Crouch, the others. It hadn't been revulsion. It had been rightness. "Get some sleep," Hermione said softly. "Tomorrow's going to be hard. The Ministry's sending people. Dumbledore's up to something. And from what I heard, Fudge is already trying to spin the story so Voldemort's return is some kind of hoax. Let him try." The fire rose in Harry's voice. "Let him stand in front of me and call me a liar. I'll show him exactly what happened." Hermione flinched. "Harry." He forced the fire down. "Sorry. I'm sorry. It's so close to the surface. Every time I feel something strongly, it pushes back. Then we'll work on that first." She stood, reluctantly releasing his hand. "A clemency, maybe. Or meditation. Something to give you distance from it." She was already planning, already strategizing. It was such a perfectly Hermione response that Harry felt something in his chest loosen. "Thank you," he said. "For not running away." Hermione paused at the foot of his bed. "I ran toward a troll for you in first year. You think I'm going to let a little cosmic fire scare me off?" She smiled, small and worried but real. Then she slipped back into the shadows, past the watchers who probably hadn't even noticed she was there. Harry lay back against his pillows and stared at the ceiling. The fire hummed in his blood, content for now, waiting. The vision came at 3 in the morning. Harry didn't dream anymore, at least, not the way he used to. When he slept, the fire showed him things. Truths it wanted him to understand. He stood in a void between stars, and something vast regarded him with alien interest. The Phoenix Force in its true form was impossible to comprehend. It wasn't a bird, not really, that was just the shape human minds forced onto something too big for reality. It was entropy and creation, death and rebirth, the fundamental truth that everything ends and everything begins. "You carry me now," it said without words. "Do you understand what that means?" "No," Harry admitted. "Good. The ones who think they understand are the dangerous ones." An impression of fire and ruin, cities burning, civilizations crumbling. "I have been carried before. Some became tyrants. Some became saviors. Some became nothing at all. What will I become? That is always the question. What will you choose to become?" The void shifted, and Harry saw the wizarding world through the Phoenix Force's perception. Not just Britain, the whole hidden society, stretched across the globe. It was sick. The corruption showed as darkness, as rot, as tumors in a living body. The Ministry of Magic was gangrenous with bribery and bigotry. Pureblood families hoarded wealth and power built on centuries of oppression. Magical creatures were enslaved or hunted. Muggle-born witches and wizards were treated as second-class citizens at best. And underneath it all, the Horcruxes. Harry could see them now, Tom Riddle's anchors to immortality scattered across Britain like splinters of infection. A locket pulsing with malevolent awareness. A cup hidden in a vault. A diadem forgotten in a room of lost things. A snake coiled around its master. "These must burn," the Phoenix Force said. "These offend the natural order more than anything else." A soul torn and scattered, denied the cycle, clutching at existence like a drowning man clutching at straws. "How many are there?" 6 remain. 7 were made. I have already destroyed one. The Horcrux in his scar. Harry touched his forehead reflexively, feeling nothing but smooth skin and dead tissue. "Thank you," he said. "For taking that out of me. I did not do it for thanks. I did it because it was wrong." A sense of vast amusement. "But you are welcome, young host. You are perhaps the first to thank me for burning. What happens now?" "Now? The Phoenix Force's presence seemed to expand, filling the void with heat and light. Now you return to your world. Now you face the consequences of what you are. Now you choose. Choose what? What burns? What is spared? What you become? The vision fragmented. Harry caught glimpses: Dumbledore's worried face, Fudge's florid anger, black-robed figures watching from shadows, a symbol he didn't recognize burned into stone. There are others who hunt those like you, the Phoenix Force whispered as the void began to collapse. They fear what you might become. They may be right to fear. Or they may be the very corruption that needs to burn. Choose wisely, young Phoenix. Or choose it all. That is more than most manage. Harry woke with fire on his lips and his hands glowing like embers. Dawn came gray and cold. Harry watched the sunrise through the hospital wing's windows, cataloging the differences in how he experienced the world now. Colors were sharper. He could feel the life force of every person in the castle, dim candle flames of magic and mortality. The fire in his chest had settled into a steady burn, not consuming but present, always present. He was not the same person who had entered the maze yesterday. He wasn't sure he was even entirely human anymore. The door opened, and Cornelius Fudge strode in flanked by Aurors. The Minister for Magic looked like he hadn't slept. His lime green bowler hat was askew, his pinstriped cloak wrinkled. But his expression was set in familiar lines of stubborn denial. "Mr. Potter." Fudge's voice dripped with false concern. "How are you feeling?" "Like I watched a friend die and then killed several people." Harry didn't move from his bed. "How should I be feeling, Minister?" Fudge's eye twitched. "Yes, well. Tragic business all around. But we need to discuss your claims." "My claims?" "This nonsense about you-know-who returning." Fudge waved a dismissive hand. "Obviously you experienced something traumatic. Memory charms, perhaps, or some kind of dark ritual designed to confuse you. But the idea that he who must not be named is alive and well is simply, his name is Voldemort." The Aurors flinched. Fudge went pale. "And he's back," Harry continued. "I watched him crawl out of a cauldron. I fought him. He ran from me, because of this. He raised his hand and let the fire bloom. Not much, just a gentle flame dancing across his palm, casting orange light across the hospital wing. But the Aurors scrambled backward like he'd pulled a weapon, and Fudge made a sound like a stepped-on cat. What is, I don't know what I am anymore." Harry closed his fist, extinguishing the flame. "But I know what I saw, and I know what I did. Voldemort is back. His followers are regrouping. And if you waste time pretending otherwise, people are going to die." Fudge's face cycled through fear, anger, and finally settled on the bureaucrat's last refuge, denial. "You're clearly unwell. Traumatized. We'll have the Ministry's best healers examine you, and in the meantime, I must ask you to refrain from making these inflammatory statements." "Or what?" The question hung in the air. Harry watched Fudge realize, perhaps for the first time, that threats were meaningless against someone who could incinerate you with a thought. "I'm not your enemy, Minister." Harry let his tone soften slightly. "I don't want to fight the Ministry. I want to stop Voldemort. But if you try to silence me, if you try to discredit me while he rebuilds his power, then you become part of the problem." "Is that a threat, boy?" "It's a statement of fact." Harry met Fudge's eyes. "I can see lies now. I can see corruption. I can see the gold Lucius Malfoy has been funneling into Ministry coffers for the past decade. I can see every deal you've made, every truth you've buried, every justice you've denied." Fudge went white as parchment. "So here's what's going to happen," Harry said. "You're going to leave this room. You're going to go back to London. And you're going to think very carefully about what kind of minister you want to be. One who faces the darkness, or one who becomes part of it. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Fudge turned on his heel and strode out, his Aurors hurrying to follow. One of them, a young woman with pink hair, lingered at the door, giving Harry a long, appraising look. "Watch her," she said quietly. "I believe you." Then she was gone, and Harry was alone with the fire and the dawn. Dumbledore came an hour later. The headmaster looked every one of his 100+ years. His robes were rumpled, his beard uncombed, and the usual twinkle in his blue eyes had been replaced by something heavier. "May I sit?" he asked. Harry nodded. Dumbledore settled into the chair beside the bed, moving like a man carrying a great weight. For a long moment, he simply studied Harry, those penetrating eyes searching for something. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. Harry said nothing. The fire waited. "I have known since the night your parents died that Voldemort placed a fragment of his soul inside you." Dumbledore's voice was heavy with regret. "I told myself I was protecting you by keeping this secret. That knowing would only cause you pain. But the truth is, I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of losing you. Of turning you against me. Of making you feel like a weapon instead of a person." Dumbledore's hands twisted in his lap. "I have made so many mistakes, Harry. I thought that by controlling information, I could control outcomes. I thought I was wiser than the universe. You thought I'd need to die to destroy it. It wasn't a question." Harry could see the truth burning behind Dumbledore's eyes, years of planning, of preparing Harry to be a sacrifice, of telling himself it was for the greater good. "Yes," Dumbledore admitted. "I believed. I feared, that the only way to destroy the Horcrux in your scar was to destroy you along with it. I was preparing myself, and you, without your knowledge, for that eventuality." The fire surged. Harry forced it down. "But whatever happened to you last night changed everything," Dumbledore continued. "The Horcrux is gone. You survived. And now you carry something that I do not understand, something that may be more dangerous than Voldemort himself. Is that what you're afraid of now? That I'm the bigger threat? I am afraid for you, not of you." Dumbledore's voice cracked slightly. "I have seen what power does to people, Harry. I have felt its seduction myself. And whatever force has bonded with you, it is power beyond anything in my experience." Harry considered the old man before him. The weight of secrets. The arrogance of good intentions. The genuine care buried under decades of manipulation. "I don't forgive you," he said finally. "What you were planning, using me as a weapon, as a sacrifice, I don't forgive that. I would not expect you to. But I understand why you did it." Harry looked at his hands, at the faint golden glow beneath his skin. "You saw a problem with no good solutions and you chose the least bad option. You were wrong, but you weren't evil. Small comfort. It's the only kind I've got." Harry met Dumbledore's eyes. "I need to know everything about Voldemort's Horcruxes. Where they are. How to destroy them. I can feel them now, like splinters in my mind. They need to burn. If you destroy them, Voldemort becomes mortal. I know. And then?" Harry's smile had no warmth in it. "Then I do what I was apparently always meant to do. I face him. But this time, I won't be the one who dies." Dumbledore was quiet for a long time. "The remaining Horcruxes are well hidden," he said at last. "I have spent years searching for them. A locket that belonged to Salazar Slytherin, I believe it may be in the possession of a former house elf of the Black family. A cup that belonged to Helga Hufflepuff, almost certainly in the Lestrange vault at Gringotts. A diadem that belonged to Rowena Ravenclaw, lost for centuries, location unknown. And his snake, Nagini, who is rarely far from his side. 4 Horcruxes. Plus the one you burned last night. 6 total. The diary that possessed Miss Weasley in your second year was the first to be destroyed." Harry nodded. The fire catalogued the information, plotting trajectories and possibilities. "I'll find them," he said. "I'll destroy them. And then I'll end him." "And what then, Harry?" Dumbledore leaned forward. "What will you do with this power once Voldemort is gone?" It was the right question. The question Harry had been avoiding since he woke up burning in that graveyard. "I don't know," he admitted. "The fire wants to burn all the corruption in the wizarding world. Sometimes I want that too. But I know that path leads somewhere dark. If I start deciding who deserves to live and who deserves to burn, you become what you sought to destroy." "Yeah." They sat in silence as the morning light grew stronger. "I will help you however I can," Dumbledore said finally. "Not as a chess master moving pieces, but as a teacher helping a student. Whatever knowledge I have, whatever resources I command, they are at your disposal. Even if I make choices you disagree with. Even then." A ghost of the old twinkle appeared in Dumbledore's eyes. "Though I hope you will at least listen to an old man's counsel before ignoring it." It wasn't trust. Not yet, maybe not ever. But it was a start. "There's something else," Harry said. "When Crouch burned, I saw something on the ground. A symbol. A circle with a blade through it. Does that mean anything to you?" Dumbledore went very still. "Where did you see this symbol?" "It was burned into the ground where I transformed." "In the graveyard." The color drained from Dumbledore's face. For the first time, Harry saw something that might have been fear in the old wizard's expression. "That is the mark of the consecrators," Dumbledore said slowly. "An ancient order that has existed for millennia. Their purpose is singular, they hunt those who carry the Phoenix Force." "Hunt them?" "The Phoenix Force has manifested in hosts throughout history. Some became heroes. Some became monsters. The consecrators do not distinguish. They believe any host is too dangerous to exist." Dumbledore's voice was grim. "They have killed at least 3 Phoenix hosts that I know of, and those are only the ones recorded in history." Harry absorbed this. More enemies. More people who wanted him dead, not for anything he'd done but for what he might become. "How do I fight them?" "I do not know. They possess artifacts and knowledge specifically designed to counter the Phoenix Force. They are patient, intelligent, and utterly ruthless." Dumbledore stood, suddenly looking even older. "I will research what I can. In the meantime, be careful, Harry. Be very careful. The consecrators have waited centuries for a new host to emerge. They will not wait long to act." He moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it is worth," he said without turning around, "I am glad you survived. And I am sorry, truly sorry, for all my failures." Then he was gone, and Harry was left with fire in his chest and a target on his back. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Ron came, awkward and scared but trying to hide it. He babbled about the tournament, about Crumb and Fleur, about anything except what had happened in the graveyard. Harry appreciated the effort even as he saw through it. "You're still you, right?" Ron finally asked. "Whatever happened, you're still Harry?" "I think so." Harry managed a smile. "Still hate Malfoy. Still can't play chess worth a damn. Still think Hermione's the smartest person I know. Don't let her hear you say that. She's insufferable enough already." They laughed, and for a moment it almost felt normal. But Harry could feel the fire waiting, could feel the vast consciousness of the Phoenix Force watching through his eyes. Nothing would ever be truly normal again. His other visitors were less welcome. Rita Skeeter tried to sneak in as a beetle. Harry felt her presence immediately, the fire showed him her malicious intent like a spotlight in darkness. He caught her mid-transformation and held her in a flame that didn't burn, just contained. "You have a choice," he told the terrified journalist. "Write the truth about what happened, or don't write anything at all. If I see one more lie with your name on it, I'll make sure everyone knows about your unregistered animagus form. Understand?" She nodded frantically. He released her, and she fled. By evening, Harry felt well enough to leave the hospital wing. He walked the corridors of Hogwarts, feeling the ancient magic in the stones, the wards woven over centuries. The castle recognized him differently now, he could feel it adjusting, accommodating, curious about what he'd become. The room of requirement opened without him asking. Inside was exactly what he needed, a space to think. Comfortable chairs, a fire in the hearth, which blazed higher when he entered, responding to his nature, and absolute privacy. Harry sat in the silence and let himself finally feel everything he'd been suppressing. Cedric was dead. A good person, a friend, dead because Harry had been too slow. He'd killed people. Burned them alive. And he'd felt nothing but satisfaction. There was a monster living inside him now. Or maybe he was becoming the monster. The line was getting harder to find. And everywhere he looked, he saw corruption. The ministry that would rather deny Voldemort's return than face it. The Death Eaters who'd escaped justice through bribery and connections. The laws that treated house elves as property and werewolves as animals. The whole rotten structure of wizarding society, built on blood purity and old money and the systematic oppression of anyone different. The fire wanted to burn it all. Part of Harry wanted to let it. But he could still hear Hermione's voice, "You're still Harry. Whatever this thing is, it chose a good person to bond with." Was that true? Had the Phoenix Force chosen him because he was good, or had it chosen him because he was wounded and angry and full of suppressed rage? Did it matter? Harry stared into the flames, and they stared back at him with something that might have been patience. "Choose," the fire seemed to whisper. "Choose what you will be. Choose what you will burn. But choose." He had no answers. Not yet. But he had time. He had allies. And he had power beyond anything he'd ever imagined. Whatever came next, Voldemort, the Ministry, the Consecrators, his own darkness, he would face it. And if necessary, he would burn. That night, Harry dreamed of the future. Not prophecy, the Phoenix Force didn't deal in prophecy, but possibility. Branching paths spreading out from this moment like flames from a spark. In one path, he surrendered to the fire. He burned Voldemort, then the Death Eaters, then the Ministry, then everyone who stood in his way. He became a god of destruction, and when there was nothing left to burn, he turned the fire on himself. In another path, he suppressed the fire entirely. He tried to be normal, to pretend he hadn't been changed. The Phoenix Force grew restless in its cage, and eventually it broke free in a moment of crisis, consuming him and everyone around him. In a third path, the narrowest, the most difficult, he walked a line between control and release. He burned what needed to burn, spared what deserved to be spared, and somehow, against all odds, remained himself. The dream showed him allies and enemies, battles and quiet moments, triumph and loss. It showed him Hermione's face in firelight, saw her courage and fear and love. It showed him Dumbledore's final breath, Voldemort's end, and beyond that, far beyond, a universe of possibilities. "The choice is always yours," the Phoenix Force murmured. "The fire does not choose. The fire only burns what you allow it to burn. Choose wisely. Or burn everything, including yourself. Either way, I will be here." Harry woke at dawn, and his hands were on fire. But this time, he didn't try to suppress it. He watched the flames dance across his skin, felt their heat and their hunger, and made his first conscious choice. The fire dimmed. Not extinguished, never extinguished, but controlled. Contained. Waiting. He would need that patience. The summer was coming. Voldemort was rebuilding. The Ministry was lying. The Consecrators were watching. And Harry Potter, the boy who lived, the host of the Phoenix Force, was done being a pawn in other people's games. Whatever came next, he would face it on his own terms. And if the world tried to burn him, he would burn it right back. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Trial by Fire. The summer heat pressed down on Privet Drive like a suffocating blanket, but Harry didn't feel it anymore. He sat on the edge of his bed in the smallest bedroom of number 4, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and red. 2 weeks since the graveyard. 2 weeks since everything changed. The Dursleys had noticed the difference immediately, not that he'd told them anything, but they could sense it the way animals sense a predator. Vernon hadn't raised his voice once since Harry came home. Petunia watched him from doorways, her horse-like face pinched with something that might have been fear or might have been recognition. She'd known Lily, after all. She'd seen magic before. But this was different. This was something that made the hairs on her arms stand up when Harry walked past. Dudley had taken one look at Harry's eyes, still green, but with something burning behind them now, and hadn't come within 10 feet of him since. Harry supposed he should feel guilty about that. They were still his family, technically. They'd housed him for 14 years, however grudgingly. But the fire didn't care about grudging hospitality. The fire saw the cupboard under the stairs, still fitted with its locks. The fire saw the bars that had been on his window. The fire saw 14 years of neglect and cruelty dressed up as respectability. It wanted to burn this house to the ground. Harry kept it contained. Barely. The letters from his friends helped. Hermione wrote daily, long missives full of research and theories and carefully worded concern. She'd found references to the Phoenix Force in obscure magical texts, always vague, always incomplete, but enough to confirm that this had happened before. The hosts are called different things in different cultures, she'd written yesterday. Firebirds in Eastern Europe. Burning ones in ancient Egypt. The immolated saints in certain Catholic texts that the Church has tried very hard to suppress. But the pattern is always the same, ordinary people transformed by contact with something cosmic, wielding power that terrifies everyone around them. The texts disagree on whether the hosts were heroes or monsters. I think that's because they were both, depending on the choices they made. Please keep making good choices, Harry. I know you will. Ron's letters were shorter and more awkward. He was scared, Harry could read it between the lines, but he was trying not to be. He wrote about Quidditch and food and the twins' latest experiments, carefully avoiding any mention of what had happened at the tournament. Harry appreciated the normalcy, even if it felt like a costume that no longer fit. The Order of the Phoenix watched him constantly. He could feel their presence, Mundungus Fletcher's tobacco-stained magic lurking in the bushes, the sharper awareness of whoever replaced him on rotation. They thought they were being subtle. Nothing was subtle to Harry anymore. He felt the Dementors before he saw them. It was Thursday, just past 8 in the evening. Harry had gone for a walk to escape the oppressive silence of the Dursley house. The neighborhood was quiet, families settling in for the night, the mundane rhythms of suburban life playing out behind closed doors. Then the temperature dropped. The warmth of summer vanished in an instant, replaced by a bone-deep cold that had nothing to do with weather. The streetlights flickered and died. The happy sounds of evening, televisions, conversations, a dog barking somewhere, faded into suffocating silence. Harry stopped walking. 2 figures glided around the corner of Wisteria Walk. Tall, cloaked, moving with that horrible drifting motion that defied physics. Their presence sucked the joy from the air, the hope from the heart, the warmth from the world. Dementors. In Little Whinging. For a moment, Harry felt the old fear. The memories the Dementors drew out, his mother's screams, the flash of green light, the cold certainty of death approaching. The despair they brought, the sense that nothing good had ever existed or would ever exist again. Then the fire woke up. It rose through him like lava through rock, burning away the despair, incinerating the false memories. The Phoenix Force did not tolerate these creatures, these violations of the natural order, these parasites that fed on human suffering. The Dementors stopped their advance. Their faceless heads turned toward Harry, sensing something they had never encountered before. Pray that was not prey. You shouldn't be here, Harry said. His voice came out layered, resonant with power that wasn't entirely his own. This isn't your hunting ground. The Dementors didn't retreat. They were creatures of instinct, of hunger. They knew only consumption. The presence of so much life force, so much power, overrode whatever self-preservation they might have possessed. They lunged. Harry didn't reach for his wand. He didn't need it. He raised his hand, and the fire answered. It wasn't like casting a Patronus. The Patronus was a shield, a defense, a happy memory given form. This was something else entirely. This was judgment. This was the fundamental truth that some things should not exist, given the power to enforce itself. The flames that erupted from Harry's palm were white gold and endless. They struck the first Dementor and didn't stop, didn't push it back, didn't drive it away, didn't merely oppose its darkness. They unmade it. The Dementor screamed. Harry hadn't known they could scream, had never heard anyone describe such a sound, but it tore through the night like nothing human, a sound of something ancient and terrible being erased from existence. The creature burned. Its cloak, its form, whatever passed for its essence, all of it consumed in an instant, reduced to nothing, not even ash. It was as if the Dementor had never existed at all. The second one tried to flee. Harry didn't let it. The fire pursued, implacable and absolute. The Dementor made it perhaps 30 feet before the flames caught it, wrapped around it, burned through it. Another scream, shorter this time. Another absence where something had been. The streetlights flickered back to life. The warmth of summer returned, sudden and almost shocking after the Dementor's cold. Somewhere nearby, a dog started barking again. Harry stood alone on the sidewalk, his hands still raised, flames slowly dying around his fingers. He'd just destroyed 2 Dementors. Not driven them away, destroyed them. Something that wasn't supposed to be possible. Something that no wizard in recorded history had ever accomplished. The fire hummed with satisfaction. And somewhere in the shadows, unseen, a figure with ancient eyes watched and made careful notes. The owl arrived before Harry made it back to Privet Drive. Ministry letterhead. Official seal. The familiar bureaucratic language that managed to be both pompous and threatening. Dear Mr. Potter, we have received intelligence that you performed magic in a Muggle-inhabited area at 23 minutes past 8 this evening. The severity of this breach of the decree for the reasonable restriction of underage sorcery has resulted in your expulsion from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Ministry representatives will be arriving shortly to destroy your wand. Harry read the letter twice, then let the fire consume it. The flames felt almost amused, if cosmic entities could feel amusement. As if the idea of the ministry expelling him or destroying his wand was somehow funny. It was, Harry supposed. He didn't need a wand anymore. He barely needed to be a wizard in the traditional sense. The Phoenix Force was magic at a level the ministry couldn't comprehend, let alone regulate. But he wasn't going to let this stand. More owls arrived over the next hour. Arthur Weasley, warning him to stay put and not surrender his wand. Sirius, furious and promising to come get him himself. Dumbledore, asking him to wait and trust that this would be resolved. Harry ignored all of them. When the ministry representatives arrived, 2 nervous-looking wizards from the improper use of magic office, Harry was waiting on the front lawn. Mr. Potter. The senior wizard tried to sound authoritative. You are required to surrender your wand immediately. You will be. I was attacked by Dementors, Harry said calmly. In a Muggle neighborhood. Sent by someone in the ministry, presumably, since they don't just wander around little whinging on their own. That's absurd. Dementors are under ministry control. Are they? Harry tilted his head. The fire showed him things, the man's nervousness, his uncertainty, the orders he'd been given and the doubts he tried not to feel. Show me the duty roster. Show me where those Dementors were supposed to be tonight. Show me who ordered them to come here. The wizard's face reddened. You don't get to make demands. You're a child who has been expelled. I haven't been expelled. Harry let a flicker of flame dance across his knuckles. Not threatening, not quite. Just a reminder. There's going to be a hearing. Due process. Unless the Ministry has decided to abandon the rule of law entirely. The younger wizard grabbed his partner's arm. Jenkins. Jenkins, look at his hands. They both looked. They both went pale. I'm going to go back inside now, Harry said pleasantly. When the Ministry decides to hold my hearing, I'll attend. Until then, I suggest you go back to London and tell whoever sent you that Harry Potter isn't going to be bullied into silence. He turned his back on them and walked inside. They didn't try to stop him. The next 2 weeks were a flurry of letters, negotiations, and barely contained panic from everyone who knew what Harry had done. Dumbledore intervened with the Ministry, postponing the expulsion and demanding a full hearing. The Order of the Phoenix went into overdrive, investigating how Dementors had ended up in Little Whinging. Someone high in the Ministry had given the order, but no one could prove who. Harry knew, of course. The fire showed him connections and corruptions that others couldn't see. Dolores Umbridge's stubby fingers were all over this. Her hatred of half-breeds and her fanatical loyalty to Fudge made her the obvious choice. But knowing and proving were different things. He let Dumbledore handle the politics. For now. What concerned Harry more was the other thing he'd sensed that night, the Watcher in the shadows. Someone had observed his destruction of the Dementors. Someone with magic that felt old and cold and patient. The Consecrators. It had to be. He wrote to Dumbledore about it, received a terse response confirming his suspicions. Be vigilant. They are gathering information before they act. We are doing the same. Not exactly reassuring. Hermione's letters became more frantic as the hearing approached. She'd researched wizarding law exhaustively, preparing arguments and precedents that might help his case. Harry appreciated the effort, even though he suspected it wouldn't matter. This wasn't really about magic in front of Muggles. This was about Cornelius Fudge's desperate need to discredit him, to make the boy who lived into a lying, unstable criminal rather than a credible witness to Voldemort's return. The fire wanted to burn Fudge's lies to ash. Harry wasn't sure that was wrong. The morning of the hearing arrived grey and overcast. Harry dressed carefully, clean robes, neat hair, the appearance of a respectful young wizard. The irony wasn't lost on him. He could level the Ministry building if he chose, but he was still playing their games. For now, the fire whispered. We play their games for now. Mr. Weasley met him in London, nervous and well-meaning and utterly unprepared for what Harry had become. He kept shooting glances at Harry's hands, as if expecting flames to erupt at any moment. Now remember, Arthur said for the 3rd time, stay calm. Don't antagonize them. Dumbledore will be there, and, I know, Mr. Weasley. Thank you. The Ministry of Magic was a monument to bureaucracy, black marble and gold fixtures and countless witches and wizards hurrying about looking important. Harry felt their magic like candle flames, dim and flickering compared to the inferno he carried. The fire showed him other things too. Bribery flowing through the system like blood through veins. Petty cruelties dressed up as policy. The endless small corruptions that kept the whole machine running. It was so much worse than he'd imagined. They rode the lift down to level 9, where the courtrooms waited. The Wizengamot. The full assembly, gathered to judge a 14-year-old boy for the crime of surviving an assassination attempt. The chamber was vast and cold, designed to intimidate. Rows of plum-robed witches and wizards looked down from raised benches, their faces ranging from hostile to merely curious. At the center, behind the highest bench, sat Cornelius Fudge with Dolores Umbridge on one side and Amelia Bones on the other. Harry walked to the chair in the center of the room. Chains hung from its arms, waiting to bind the accused. He sat down. The chains rattled but didn't move. Fudge's eye twitched. "Harry James Potter," the minister began, his voice echoing in the chamber, "you stand accused of performing magic in a Muggle-inhabited area in the presence of a Muggle. Contrary to, I was attacked by Dementors." Fudge's mouth snapped shut. The chamber buzzed with whispers. "You will speak when spoken to," Umbridge's girlish voice cut through the noise. "The accused does not interrupt these proceedings." Harry turned to look at her. The fire recoiled. He'd known she was corrupt. He'd expected the petty cruelty that Hermione had warned him about, the bureaucratic sadism that passed for authority in people like her. But this was something else. Dolores Umbridge wasn't merely corrupt. She was wrong in a fundamental way, a walking embodiment of everything the Phoenix Force despised. Order without justice. Rules without mercy. Authority serving only itself. Looking at her was like looking at a tumor given human form. "Dementors," Fudge said loudly, trying to regain control of the room. "You claim Dementors attacked you in Little Whinging. A transparent fabrication." "I don't claim anything." Harry's voice was calm, but something in it made the nearest Wizengamot members lean back in their seats. There were 2 Dementors. They came from the direction of the main road at approximately 23 minutes past 8. They attacked me. I defended myself. With what magic? Amelia Bones leaned forward, genuinely curious. "Our instruments detected no Patronus charm." "I didn't use a Patronus." Silence. "Then what," Fudge demanded, "did you use?" Harry considered the question. He could lie, claim some variant of defensive magic, let them believe what they wanted. That's what the old Harry would have done. Play the game, minimize the threat, survive another day. But the old Harry had died in that graveyard. "I destroyed them," he said simply. The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped, questions, accusations, disbelief shouted from every direction. Fudge pounded his gavel uselessly. Umbridge's face had gone blotchy with rage. "Order." Amelia Bones' voice cut through the chaos. "We will have order." The noise subsided gradually. Bones fixed Harry with an intense stare. "Mr. Potter. Are you claiming that you destroyed 2 Dementors? That you killed creatures that have never, in recorded history, been successfully destroyed?" "Yes." "How?" Harry raised his hand. He let the fire show itself, just a gentle flicker, barely visible, but enough. The temperature in the chamber rose by several degrees. "Something happened to me during the Triwizard Tournament. I don't fully understand it yet. But whatever it is, it doesn't like Dementors very much." Pandemonium. Again. This time it took longer to restore order. Harry sat in his chair and watched the Wizengamot members argue among themselves, watched Fudge's growing panic, watched Umbridge's hatred crystallize into something cold and purposeful. Dumbledore arrived in the middle of the chaos, his entrance cutting through the noise like a knife. He swept into the chamber with quiet authority, taking a position at Harry's side. "My apologies for the delay," he said calmly. "I trust the proceedings have been fair." "Dumbledore." Fudge spat the name. "This is an internal ministry matter. You have no standing. I am here as witness for the defense. Unless the ministry has decided to deny the accused their legal rights." The question hung in the air, pointed and dangerous. "Proceed," Bones said before Fudge could respond. "But we will have answers, Dumbledore. The boy just claimed to have destroyed Dementors. Either he's lying, or something fundamental has changed," Dumbledore finished. "Yes. I believe the second option is correct." The hearing lasted 3 hours. Harry told his story, most of it, anyway. The attack in the graveyard, heavily edited. The transformation, vaguely described. The Dementors in Little Whinging, straightforwardly explained. He left out the Horcruxes, the Consecrators, and the full extent of what the Phoenix Force could do. Some things were not for the Ministry to know. Dumbledore produced a witness, Arabella Figg, a squib neighbor who had seen the Dementors before Harry destroyed them. Her testimony was shaky but sufficient. She couldn't see the creatures herself, but she'd felt their presence and seen Harry's fire. More importantly, Dumbledore raised the obvious question: how had Dementors come to Little Whinging in the first place? They are under Ministry control, he reminded the Wizengamot. They don't simply wander into Muggle neighborhoods on their own. Someone ordered them there. Someone wanted Harry Potter attacked, or perhaps kissed. An outrageous accusation. Fudge sputtered. Then investigate, Dumbledore said mildly. Surely the Ministry keeps records of Dementor deployments. Surely someone can account for the whereabouts of every Dementor that night. The silence that followed was telling. In the end, the vote was closer than it should have been. Cleared of all charges, by a margin of 34 to 23. 23 members of the Wizengamot had voted to expel and criminalize a 14-year-old boy for defending himself against Dementors. Harry looked at each of them as the vote was called. He memorized their faces. The fire memorized their names. Afterward, in the corridor outside the courtroom, Dumbledore pulled him aside. That was dangerous, Harry. Showing them what you can do. They already knew something had changed. Fudge's people have been watching me all summer. Harry's voice was flat. At least now they're afraid of the right thing. Fear can drive people to desperate acts. So can lies. Harry turned to face the old wizard. Fudge is never going to admit Voldemort is back. He's going to spend all his energy trying to destroy my credibility instead of preparing for war. People are going to die because of his cowardice. Yes. Dumbledore's voice was heavy. They probably are. And you're just going to let that happen? Wait and watch while he buries his head in the sand. What would you have me do, Harry? Storm the Ministry? Force Fudge from office? Such actions would only confirm their fears, that we're trying to seize power, that Voldemort's return is a pretext for our own ambitions. So we do nothing. We prepare. We gather allies. We work within the system where we can. And around it where we must. Dumbledore placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. I know it feels insufficient. I know you have the power to force change more directly. But power without legitimacy becomes tyranny, even when its goals are righteous. Harry wanted to argue. The fire wanted to burn this whole corrupt system down and rebuild something better from the ashes. But he remembered his vision, the paths branching from this moment, the dangers of surrendering to destruction. Fine, he said. We do it your way. For now. For now, Dumbledore agreed. But Harry, keep training. Keep growing stronger. Because the time may come when gentler methods are no longer sufficient, and on that day, we will need everything you can become. It wasn't approval, exactly. But it was acknowledgement. Harry would take it. The Hogwarts Express felt different this year. Harry sat in a compartment with Hermione and Ron, watching the countryside roll past, feeling the magic of his fellow students like 1,000 small fires scattered through the train. They were all so young. Even the 7th years seemed like children to him now, untested, unknowing, living in a world they didn't realize was about to change forever. You're doing it again, Hermione said. Doing what? Looking at everyone like you're calculating something. She closed the book she'd been reading, Cosmic Entities and Their Mortal Vessels, probably acquired through very unofficial channels. It's unsettling. Sorry. Harry forced himself to focus on her face instead of the broader tapestry of magic around them. I'm still getting used to everything. Is it getting easier? Ron asked. He'd been quiet for most of the journey, still processing what Harry had told them about the hearing. The fire thing, I mean. Controlling it. Sometimes. It's not really about control, though. It's more like, negotiation. The Phoenix Force has its own instincts, its own desires. I have to convince it that my choices are the right ones. And when you can't convince it? Harry didn't answer. He didn't have to. The compartment door slid open. Daphne Greengrass stood in the doorway, tall, blonde, with the aristocratic features and practiced poise of old pure-blood money. Her blue eyes swept over Harry with cool appraisal. "Potter. Mind if I sit?" Ron made a noise of protest. "What do you want, Greengrass?" "A conversation." "Unless that's beyond your capabilities, Weasley." "It's fine." Harry gestured to the empty seat beside Hermione. "Sit." Daphne settled into the seat with precise elegance. She studied Harry for a long moment, ignoring the hostile stares from Ron and the wary curiosity from Hermione. "You destroyed 2 Dementors," she said finally. "My father has contacts in the Ministry. The story is all over the Department of Magical Law Enforcement." "Is there a question in there?" "Several. But I'll start with the most important one." Daphne leaned forward slightly. "What are you, Potter?" "Because you're not just a wizard anymore. Anyone with eyes can see that." "I'm not sure what I am," Harry admitted. "Something changed during the tournament. I'm still figuring out what it means." "But you have power. Real power. The kind that can change things." "Maybe." Daphne's lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The old families are scared. They've spent generations maintaining a balance of power, and suddenly there's a 14-year-old boy who can do things no one else can do. Some of them want to destroy you. Some want to control you. Some, the smart ones, want to make sure they're on your side when the dust settles. Which category does your family fall into?" "We're Slytherins, Potter. We're always on whatever side is winning." She pulled a sealed envelope from her robes and offered it to him. "My father asked me to give you this. Consider it an opening gesture." Harry took the envelope but didn't open it. What does he want? The same thing everyone wants. To survive what's coming. To position our family advantageously for whatever comes next. Daphne stood, smoothing her robes. "Read the letter. Think about what he's offering. The Greengrass family has survived every war and upheaval in wizarding history for the past 500 years. There's a reason for that." She paused at the door. "Whatever you decide, Potter, decide quickly. The Dark Lord is rebuilding his forces. The Ministry is compromised. And whoever you really are now, you're running out of time to figure out which side of history you want to be on." She left without waiting for a response. Ron exploded the moment the door closed. The nerve. "Slytherin snake, trying to get her hooks into you. She's not wrong, though." Hermione's voice was thoughtful. "About the power dynamics, I mean. The pureblood families are going to be maneuvering for position. Some of them might actually be useful allies." "Useful allies?" "Hermione, her father was probably a Death Eater." "Was he?" Harry opened the envelope. Inside was a single page of expensive parchment, covered in elegant handwriting. According to this, Cyrus Greengrass spent the First War very carefully not being on anyone's side. Provided gold to the Order of the Phoenix. Provided gold to Voldemort's supporters. Maintained deniability with everyone. That's exactly what a Death Eater would say. Or exactly what a survivor would say. Harry set the letter aside. "I'm not saying I trust them. But Daphne's right about one thing, I need information. I need to know who's moving, what they want, where the threats are coming from. The old families have intelligence networks that the Order doesn't." Hermione nodded slowly. "It's like those Muggle spy novels. Sometimes you have to work with people you don't trust to get what you need. Assuming they don't stab you in the back the moment it's convenient," Ron muttered. "Then I'll have to make sure it's never convenient." Harry looked out the window at the darkening sky. "Everything's changing." The old rules don't apply anymore. If we try to play by them, we'll lose. So what do we do instead? We write new rules. The fire stirred in Harry's chest, eager and hungry. And we make sure we're the ones doing the writing. Hogwarts rose from the Scottish darkness like a promise. Harry felt the ancient wards wash over him as the carriages crossed the boundary, layers of protection and monitoring and magic so old it predated the Ministry by centuries. The castle recognized him, just as it had at the end of last year, and something in its magic shifted. The thestrals pulling the carriages were visible to him now. He'd been able to see them since Cedric's death, those skeletal horses with their leathery wings and white, empty eyes. They turned to look at him as he passed, curious and unafraid. "You've seen death," their presence seemed to say. "You've caused it. You understand us now." Harry climbed out of the carriage and walked toward the great front doors. Students swirled around him, excited and chattering and oblivious to what was coming. He envied them, briefly. Then he felt her. Dolores Umbridge's magic was like oil on water, slick, unpleasant, wrong. She was somewhere in the castle already, her presence a dark smear against the clean lines of Hogwarts' ancient power. The fire stirred restlessly, recognizing a threat it desperately wanted to purge. "Not yet," Harry told it. "We don't know her game yet." The sorting ceremony passed in a blur. Harry sat at the Gryffindor table, eating without tasting, his attention fixed on the staff table where Umbridge sat beside Dumbledore. She wore pink robes, pink bows in her hair, a pink smile that didn't reach her eyes. Everything about her screamed innocence and sweetness. The fire knew better. Dumbledore's start-of-term speech was careful and measured, welcome to new students, warnings about the Forbidden Forest, the usual. Then he introduced the new defense against the dark arts teacher. "Professor Umbridge has graciously agreed to join us from the Ministry of Magic, hem hem." The sound was small, simpering, and somehow louder than Dumbledore's voice. Umbridge rose from her seat, that terrible smile widening. "Thank you, Headmaster, for those kind words of welcome." Her voice was girlish, breathy, designed to sound harmless. "I'm so pleased to be here at Hogwarts. What a lovely old castle this is. I'm sure we're all going to be very good friends." Harry felt Hermione tense beside him. The Ministry of Magic has always considered the education of young witches and wizards to be of vital importance. Although each headmaster has brought something new to this historic school, progress for progress's sake must be discouraged. Let us preserve what must be preserved, perfect what can be perfected, and prune practices that ought to be prohibited. The speech went on, full of nothing, platitudes and evasions wrapped in pink-tinged poison. Most students tuned it out within minutes. Harry listened to every word. Progress for progress's sake must be discouraged. Translation: the ministry would control what was taught here. Preserve what must be preserved. Translation: maintain the status quo that kept pureblood families in power. Prune practices that ought to be prohibited. Translation: anyone who challenges us will be removed. Dolores Umbridge wasn't just a defense teacher. She was Fudge's spy, his enforcer, his weapon against everything Harry represented. The fire wanted to burn her right now, in front of everyone, let the ashes fall where they would. Harry kept it contained. Not yet. Not yet. Let her make the first move. Let everyone see what she is. When the speech finally ended and the students were dismissed to their dormitories, Harry caught Hermione's eye. "We have a problem," he said quietly. "I know." Her face was pale. "Did you understand what she was saying?" "Every word. The ministry is taking over Hogwarts. It's worse than that." Hermione glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "That speech was almost word for word from ministry guidelines issued last month. I read about it in the Daily Prophet, buried in the back pages. They're claiming expanded authority over all magical education. Curriculum standards. Hiring decisions. Student discipline. And Dumbledore's just letting it happen." What choice does he have? Fight the Ministry openly and confirm everything Fudge has been saying about him trying to seize power? Hermione shook her head. It's a trap. We're surrounded by traps. Then we'll burn our way out. Harry's voice was calm, but his eyes flickered with that impossible fire. Umbridge thinks she's in control. Let her think that. Let her overreach. And when she does, when everyone sees what she really is, we'll make our move. What kind of move? I don't know yet. Harry smiled, and there was nothing boyish about it. But I have a feeling Professor Umbridge is going to help me figure it out. The first defense against the dark arts class came 3 days later. Harry arrived early, taking a seat in the back where he could observe the whole room. The fire simmered in his chest, eager and watchful. He'd spent the past 3 days learning what he could about Umbridge, her career at the Ministry, her anti-werewolf legislation, her role in the campaign against him. She was worse than he'd imagined. Not evil in the grand sense that Voldemort was evil, she'd never tortured or killed anyone directly. But she'd spent her career making other people's lives worse in 1,000 small ways. Regulations that stripped rights from magical creatures. Policies that made Muggleborns' lives harder without ever explicitly discriminating. A lifetime of petty cruelty wielded like a weapon. The Phoenix Force loathed her. Umbridge entered the classroom precisely on time, wearing a pink cardigan over her robes, that simpering smile fixed firmly in place. Good morning, children. A few students mumbled responses. That won't do. When I say good morning, you will reply, good morning, Professor Umbridge. Let's try again. Good morning, class. Good morning, Professor Umbridge, the class chanted, the words dragged out with varying degrees of reluctance. Much better. She flicked her wand, and words appeared on the blackboard, defense against the dark arts, a return to basic principles. Now, wands away and quills out, please. Confused murmurs rippled through the room. Defense was a practical class, always had been. You will not need wands in my classroom. Umbridge's smile never wavered. The Ministry has approved a course of defensive magical theory that should be more than sufficient to see you through your examinations. We're not going to practice spells? Dean Thomas asked. I see no reason why you would need to. In a proper learning environment, using spells should be unnecessary. You will be learning about defensive magic in a secure, risk-free way. Risk-free? Ron's voice was incredulous. But what about, hand, Mr. Weasley? Umbridge's smile tightened. We raise our hands when we wish to speak in my class. Harry watched the exchange with cold calculation. She was testing them, seeing who would push back, who would comply, who would be trouble. Her eyes kept flickering to him, waiting for his response. He said nothing. Not yet. Hermione raised her hand. Yes, Miss Granger. I've read through the entire course curriculum, and there's no mention of practical defensive spell work. Just theory. As I said, Miss Granger, theory should be perfectly adequate, but how can that be adequate? Hermione's voice rose with genuine frustration. How are we supposed to defend ourselves if we're never taught how to use defensive spells? Defend yourselves. Umbridge laughed, a girlish titter that made Harry's skin crawl. From whom, Miss Granger? Who do you imagine would want to attack children like you? The room went silent. Harry felt every eye turn toward him. Umbridge's smile sharpened with triumph. This was what she wanted, to force him into confrontation, to give her an excuse. I think, Harry said quietly, we both know the answer to that question. Do we? Umbridge turned to face him fully, her expression never changing. Please enlighten us, Mr. Potter. Who exactly do you believe presents such a grave threat? Voldemort. The name hit the room like a physical blow. Students flinched. Umbridge's smile finally cracked, fury bleeding through the sweetness. 10 points from Gryffindor for that outburst. It's not an outburst. It's an answer to your question. Harry's voice remained calm, even as the fire roiled beneath his surface. Voldemort is back. I saw him return. I fought him. And people who aren't prepared to defend themselves are going to die. Lies. The word exploded from Umbridge, her face blotching red. You know who is not back. This is exactly the sort of dangerous rumor-mongering the Ministry warned me about. The Ministry is wrong. The Ministry is the lawful government of, the Ministry sent Dementors to attack me. Harry was on his feet now, the fire burning behind his eyes. The Ministry is so desperate to deny the truth that they tried to have me killed or worse. And you, he pointed at Umbridge. You're here to make sure nobody learns how to fight back when Voldemort comes for them. The room had gone deathly silent. Umbridge's mask had slipped completely, revealing the hatred beneath. Detention, she hissed. Every night this week. My office. 7 o'clock. Harry held her gaze. The fire wanted to rise, wanted to burn that smug face right off her skull. He forced it down. I'll be there, Professor. He sat back down. Looking forward to it. The blood quill was a nasty piece of work. Harry had done his research after the first confrontation, asked Hermione, consulted some of the darker books in the library's restricted section. He knew what was coming when Umbridge gestured to the parchment and the unusual quill waiting on her desk. You will be writing lines, Mr. Potter. That sweet, poisonous voice. I must not tell lies. Harry picked up the quill. No ink, of course not. Blood quills used the writer's own blood, carving the words into both parchment and flesh. Torture disguised as discipline. The fire screamed. For a moment, just a moment, Harry almost let it have its way. He could feel the Phoenix Force's fury at this violation, this petty cruelty inflicted on a child under the guise of education. It wanted to burn Umbridge down to her component atoms, wanted to purify this office of her presence, wanted to make an example that would echo through history. But Harry had learned something in the weeks since his transformation. The fire was power, but it was also instinct, and instinct wasn't always right. Burning Umbridge here and now would feel righteous, would be righteous in a cosmic sense, but it would also play directly into Fudge's hands. Proof that Harry Potter was dangerous. Justification for everything they'd said about him. He needed a different approach. Harry pressed the quill to parchment. I must not tell lies. The words carved themselves into the back of his hand. Blood welled up, soaked into the parchment, disappeared. The wound closed, then opened again as he wrote the next line. And the next. But something strange happened. The fire didn't like the blood quill, didn't like what it represented, but it also wasn't going to let its host be harmed by something so petty. Harry felt warmth spread through his hand, felt the wounds close faster than they should, felt his flesh resist the dark magic trying to scar it. After an hour, his hand was still unblemished. Umbridge noticed. Let me see your hand. Her voice had gone sharp, suspicious. Harry held it out. The skin was smooth, unmarked, as if the blood quill had never touched him. Only a faint shimmer of gold beneath the surface hinted at why. Impossible. Umbridge grabbed his wrist, examined his hand like it was an insect she wanted to dissect. The quill is working. I can see it working. Why aren't you? I don't know, Professor. Harry's smile was deliberately innocent. Maybe the quill is broken. She threw his hand away like it had burned her. Which, Harry reflected, it probably had, just a little. Get out. Come back tomorrow. Same time. Out. Harry left, his unmarked hand hidden in his pocket. The fire hummed with satisfaction. Not victory, not yet, but the beginning of something. Umbridge had expected to hurt him, to break him with slow torture. Instead, she'd shown him something valuable, her methods only worked against normal wizards. He wasn't a normal wizard anymore. The pattern repeated for the rest of the week. Each night, Harry sat in Umbridge's office and wrote lines with the blood quill. Each night, his hand healed faster than it should, the fire's warmth burning away the dark magic before it could leave permanent marks. Each night, Umbridge grew more frustrated, more confused, more hateful. She tried other quills. She extended his detention hours. She made him write faster, more lines, different words. Nothing worked. By Friday, she was looking at him with something that might have been fear. "You're not normal," she said as he left her office that last night. "Whatever you are, Potter, you're not normal." "No," Harry agreed. "I'm not." He walked through the darkened corridors of Hogwarts, letting the fire guide his steps. It led him to the room of requirement, which opened without his asking, offering him a space to think. Inside, he found Hermione waiting. "How did you know I'd come here?" "I didn't." She closed the book she'd been reading. "I've been here for hours. Researching. Find anything useful?" "Loads." She gestured to a pile of books beside her chair. "The Phoenix Force has appeared in dozens of historical records across multiple cultures. Some of the hosts became heroes, defeated dark wizards, freed enslaved peoples, overthrew corrupt governments. Others became monsters." "Yes." Hermione's voice was quiet. "The longest any host survived was 43 years. Most died much younger. The power, it's too much. Eventually, they all burned out." Harry sat down across from her. "That's supposed to scare me?" "No. It's supposed to inform you." She leaned forward, intensity in her eyes. "Every host who became a monster did the same thing, they stopped seeing the people around them as people. Started seeing them as problems to be solved, obstacles to be burned through. The fire consumed their humanity before it consumed their bodies. And the ones who stayed heroes? They had anchors. People who kept them grounded. Who reminded them what they were fighting for." Hermione reached across the space between them and took his hand. "I'm your anchor, Harry. Ron is. Neville, Luna, everyone who believes in you. We're here to keep you human." Harry looked at their joined hands. Her skin was warm against his, warmer than it should be, probably, given the fire simmering beneath his surface. But she didn't flinch away. "Umbridge is worse than I thought," he said. "It's not just cruelty. She believes what she's doing is right. That order and control and proper behavior are more important than anything else. More important than justice. More important than truth. I know. The fire wants to burn her. Every night I sit in that office, it takes everything I have to keep it contained. But you do keep it contained. For now." Harry met her eyes. "What happens when I can't anymore? What happens when someone like Umbridge pushes too far, and I let go?" Hermione didn't look away. "Then we deal with it. Together." "But Harry, the fact that you're worried about this, the fact that you're choosing to hold back, that's what makes you different from the hosts who became monsters. You have a lot of faith in me. I've known you for 4 years. You're the most stubborn, self-sacrificing, frustratingly noble person I've ever met." A small smile crossed her face. "Cosmic fire powers aren't going to change that." Harry wanted to believe her. The fire wanted him to believe her too, not because the Phoenix Force cared about hope or faith, but because belief in oneself was power, and power was something the fire understood. "There's something else," he said. "Something I found." He pulled an old locket from his robes, tarnished silver, with an ornate S worked into its surface. "I searched Grimmauld Place during the summer. This was hidden in a cabinet full of dark artifacts." Hermione's eyes went wide. "Is that a Horcrux?" "I can feel it." Harry held the locket by its chain, letting it dangle between them. The fire showed him the wrongness inside, a fragment of Tom Riddle's torn soul, clinging to existence, radiating malevolence. It's been calling to me. Whispering. Trying to corrupt me. Harry, it can't. His voice was certain. The Phoenix Force won't let it. But I can't destroy it yet. I need to know more about where it came from, how many others there are, where Voldemort has hidden them. Dumbledore knows about them. Probably knows more than he's told me. Harry tucked the locket back into his robes. I'm going to find out everything. And then I'm going to burn them. All of them. And when Voldemort has nothing left to anchor him to immortality, I'm going to burn him too. Hermione was quiet for a long moment. I love you, she said. The words hung in the air between them, simple and unexpected and utterly without pretense. Hermione, I'm not asking for anything. Her voice was steady, though her cheeks had flushed pink. I just thought you should know. In case things get bad. In case we don't get another chance to say these things. Harry didn't know what to say. The fire had no guidance for this, cosmic entities didn't understand love, not the way humans did. But beneath the fire, beneath the power and the fear and the weight of everything coming, there was still Harry Potter. Still a boy who'd never been told he was worth loving. I don't know what I am anymore, he said slowly. I don't know if I can love like a normal person. The fire changes things. Changes how I see people, how I feel about everything. But when I look at you. He reached out and took her hand again. The fire is quiet. The fire doesn't want to burn anything when you're near. It just waits. Like it knows you're important. Hermione's smile was brilliant and tear-bright. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. In a terrifying, cosmic entity sort of way. Harry laughed, a real laugh, the first one he'd managed in weeks. I'll work on better compliments. Please do. She squeezed his hand. But for now, tell me about the Horcruxes. All of them. And we'll figure out how to destroy them together. They talked until dawn, planning and researching and simply being together. Outside the room of requirement, the castle slept, unaware of the forces gathering in its halls. War was coming. Everyone who mattered knew it. But for one night, in one hidden room, two young people found something worth fighting for. The destruction of the Horcrux happened the next evening. Harry had considered waiting, learning more, being patient. But the locket's whispers had been growing stronger, more insistent, trying to find cracks in his mental defenses. The Phoenix Force kept it contained, but containing wasn't destroying, and Harry was done letting pieces of Voldemort's soul exist any longer than necessary. The room of requirement provided what he needed, an empty stone chamber with no furniture, no decorations, nothing that could be damaged. Harry stood in the center, the locket on the floor before him, Hermione and Ron watching from the doorway. Are you sure about this? Ron asked. We don't even know what will happen. No. Harry knelt before the locket. But I know what happens if I don't. This thing keeps whispering, keeps trying to corrupt me. It needs to end. He reached for the fire. It came eagerly, hungrily, rising through him like a wave. Not the controlled flicker he'd shown the Wizengamot or the gentle warmth that healed his hand. This was the Phoenix Force unleashed, the fundamental truth of destruction and rebirth given form. Harry's eyes blazed gold. His skin glowed like molten metal. The air around him rippled with heat. The locket sensed what was coming. Its whispers became screams, Tom Riddle's fragment howling in fury and terror as it realized what was about to happen. It tried to open, tried to release its defenses, tried to show Harry images that would break his concentration. He saw his parents dying. Sirius falling through the veil. Hermione's body broken and lifeless. Ron betraying him. Dumbledore manipulating him. Every fear, every doubt, every dark thought he'd ever had, all of it poured into his mind at once. The Phoenix Force burned through them like tissue paper. These are not truths, the fire sang. These are lies. Corruption. Wrongness. Burn. Harry let the fire consume the locket. The scream that erupted shook the walls. Not a physical sound, something deeper, something that existed in the space between souls. Tom Riddle's fragment fought desperately, clawing at existence, trying to find another anchor. There was none. The locket melted. The Horcrux burned. The fragment of Voldemort's soul was unmade, erased from existence as completely as the Dementors had been. Somewhere, far away, the Dark Lord felt another piece of himself die and screamed into the night. Harry knelt in the center of a scorch mark, breathing hard, the fire slowly banking. His friends rushed to his side, Hermione's hands on his shoulders, Ron's voice asking if he was okay. "It's done," Harry said. "One more gone." "How many are left?" "3, I think. Plus Nagini." Harry stood, steadying himself. "But I know where one of them is now. The Horcrux showed me, in its last moments. It was trying to distract me, but it gave me something useful instead." "Where?" Harry smiled. It wasn't a kind expression. "Hogwarts. There's a Horcrux hidden in Hogwarts, and it's been here for 50 years. The consecrators made their first move that night." Harry felt it before he saw it, a wrongness in the castle's wards, something slipping through protections that should have been impenetrable. He left the Gryffindor common room at 2 in the morning, following the fire's guidance through corridors that seemed to twist and shift around him. The assassin was waiting in an empty classroom. She was young, mid-20s, perhaps, with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that held nothing but purpose. She wore black robes with no insignia, carried a blade that made the Phoenix Force shudder, and moved with the fluid grace of someone who had killed many times before. "Harry Potter." Her voice was utterly calm. "Host of the Phoenix Force. I am here to end your threat to this world. You're a consecrator. I am. We have hunted your kind for 3,000 years. We have never failed." Harry let the fire rise, not to attack but to see. The woman's soul was clean, no corruption, no cruelty, no petty darkness. She genuinely believed she was saving the world. "You're not evil," he said. "Neither are you. Yet." She raised her blade, that terrible blade, forged from something that existed outside normal reality. "But you will be. Every host becomes evil eventually. The power is too much for any mortal mind. The kindest thing I can do is end you now, before you become what I've sworn to destroy. And if you're wrong, then I'll have killed an innocent boy, and I will carry that weight for the rest of my life." Her expression didn't waver. "But I will live to carry it. So will millions of others who would die if you lose control." She moved. She was fast, faster than any human should be, enhanced by whatever arts the consecrators had developed over millennia of hunting Phoenix hosts. Her blade cut through air that burned in its wake, aimed precisely at Harry's heart. Harry caught it with his bare hand. The blade bit deep, cutting through the flames that wreathed his skin, drawing blood that sizzled and steamed. The pain was extraordinary. That weapon was designed specifically to hurt him, to bypass the Phoenix Force's protections. But it wasn't enough. Fire erupted from Harry's other hand, not to kill but to disarm. It wrapped around the consecrator's wrist, hot enough to burn but controlled enough not to maim. She cried out and released the blade. Harry pulled it from his hand, feeling the wound close as Phoenix fire flooded the damaged tissue. "You're right that I could become a monster," he said. "Every host could. But you're wrong about inevitability. The fire doesn't control me. I control it. And I choose not to become what you fear." He dropped the blade. It clattered on the stone floor between them. "Take this back to your master. Tell Arcturus Vane, yes, I know who leads you, that I know what I'm carrying. I know the risks. And I will not become another cautionary tale in your history books." The consecrator stared at him, cradling her burned wrist. "You could have killed me. I could have killed a lot of people. Harry stepped back, letting his fire dim. I choose not to. That's the point, isn't it? The whole point. Power without choice is just instinct. Power with choice is responsibility. He turned and walked away, leaving her there with her failure and her blade. Behind him, the consecrator made no move to attack. She watched him go with something that might have been confusion, or fear, or the first faint glimmer of doubt. Dawn found Harry on the astronomy tower, watching the sun rise over the mountains. The wound in his hand had healed completely, but he could still feel where the blade had cut, a phantom pain that reminded him of his own mortality. The consecrators would come again. Voldemort would come again. The ministry would come again. Enemies on every side, and the fire burning ever brighter in his chest. Hermione found him there. I heard about the consecrator. She sat beside him on the cold stone, close enough to touch. Dumbledore is livid. The wards shouldn't have let her through. She had help. Someone inside Hogwarts is working with them. Do you know who? Harry shook his head. Not yet. But I will. They sat in silence as the sky shifted from black to gray to gold. Below them, Hogwarts woke to another day, students and teachers and staff beginning their routines, unaware of the battles being fought in their midst. The locket is destroyed, Harry said finally. One more Horcrux gone. 4 left, including the one here in the castle. Do you know where it is? Close. The fire is helping me narrow it down. He turned to look at her. I need to find it before Voldemort realizes what I'm doing. Before he has time to move them or create protections. Then we'll find it. Hermione's voice was firm. Today. Now. Whatever it takes. Harry smiled, a real smile, warm and human despite the fire burning beneath his skin. I don't deserve you. Probably not. She smiled back. But you're stuck with me anyway. Now come on, Harry Potter, host of the Phoenix Force. We have a war to win. She offered him her hand. He took it, and together they walked back into the castle, ready to face whatever came next. The fire burned on, patient and hungry, waiting to consume the corruption of the world. And Harry Potter, for the first time since the graveyard, felt something like hope. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The Resistance Burns. The Room of Requirement had become something more than a training space. Harry stood at the center of a circle of students, 37 of them now, drawn from all 4 houses, and felt their magic like a constellation of stars around him. 3 weeks into the term, and Dumbledore's army had evolved into something the founders never could have imagined. Again, Harry said. Feel the spell before you cast it. Magic isn't just words and wand movements. It's intention. It's will. Neville Longbottom raised his wand. His face was set with concentration, none of the nervous fumbling that had defined his first 4 years at Hogwarts. Something had changed in Neville since the summer, a hardness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Expelliarmus. The spell crackled with power far beyond what Neville should have been capable of. His practice partner, a 6th-year Ravenclaw named Anthony Goldstein, flew backward, his wand spinning away into the darkness. Silence fell over the room. Bloody hell, Ron breathed. Did you see that? Harry had seen it. More importantly, he'd felt it, the Phoenix Force reaching out without his conscious direction, touching Neville's magic and amplifying it. The same thing had been happening all week, to varying degrees. Students who struggled suddenly excelled. Spells that should have taken months to master clicked into place after a single lesson. He was making them stronger. Just by being near them. The implications of that were terrifying. Good work, Neville. Harry kept his voice steady. Everyone take 5. We'll move on to shield charms next. The group dispersed, clustering into small conversations. Harry caught Hermione's eye across the room. She'd noticed it too, she noticed everything, and her expression was carefully neutral in a way that meant they'd be talking about it later. Daphne Greengrass materialized at his elbow. She'd become a regular presence at DA meetings, despite the raised eyebrows from both Gryffindors and her own housemates. Her intelligence network was proving invaluable, and Harry had come to appreciate her cold practicality. "Zacharias Smith is going to be a problem," she said quietly. Harry glanced toward the corner where Smith was holding court with a few other Hufflepuffs. The boy's face was twisted with something between fear and resentment. "He's been complaining. More than complaining. He's been asking questions. Pointed ones. About what you really are, what you're planning, why you're training an army." Daphne's blue eyes were calculating. "He's not wrong to be suspicious. You're not just teaching defense, Potter. You're building something. I'm preparing people to survive. You're preparing people to fight. There's a difference." She paused. "I'm not criticizing. But Smith isn't the only one who's noticed. Sooner or later, someone is going to push back." As if summoned by her words, Smith's voice cut across the room. "This is ridiculous." Conversations died. Everyone turned to look. Smith stepped forward, his face flushed, his wand clenched at his side. "We came here to learn defense. Real defense. Not to be changed by whatever Potter's doing to us." "Changed how?" Susan Bones asked. "Can't you feel it?" Smith gestured wildly. "My magic's been different since I started coming here. Stronger. Wilder. It's like there's something in me that wasn't there before. And it's coming from him." He pointed at Harry. The room went very still. Harry could feel the attention of every person present, their curiosity, their fear, the questions they'd been too polite to ask. Smith wasn't wrong. The Phoenix Force was affecting them, bleeding into their magic through proximity to its host. He'd hoped it would go unnoticed, or at least unspoken. So much for that. "You're right," Harry said. The admission rippled through the group like a shockwave. "Something happened to me during the Triwizard Tournament. I carry something now, something powerful, something dangerous. And yes, it's affecting your magic. Making you stronger. I didn't plan it, but I can't stop it either." "So you've been experimenting on us?" Smith's voice cracked. "Using us as test subjects for whatever monster you've become?" The fire stirred. Harry felt its hunger, its contempt for this small, frightened boy who couldn't see past his own fear. It would be so easy to make an example of him. A flash of flame, a demonstration of power, and no one would ever question Harry again. He pushed the impulse down. "I'm not a monster. And I'm not experimenting on anyone." Harry stepped forward, letting his voice carry to every corner of the room. "Everything I've taught you, I learned the hard way. Everything I'm preparing you for is real. Voldemort is back, whether the Ministry admits it or not. A war is coming, and the people in this room are going to be on the front lines." "That's not," Smith started. "Your parents were in the First War, weren't they?" Harry cut him off. "The Smiths were neutral, I think. Stayed out of it. Survived while others died. Is that what you're planning? To hide while everyone else fights?" Smith's face went white, then red. His wand came up. "Stoop." Harry didn't move. He didn't need to. The spell hit an invisible barrier 3 feet from his chest and dissolved into sparks. The Phoenix Force hadn't even waited for his permission, it simply refused to let him be harmed by something so trivial. The demonstration was more effective than any argument could have been. "I'm not your enemy," Harry said quietly. "But I'm not going to pretend I'm something I'm not. I've been changed. I have power that scares people, it scares me too, sometimes. But I'm using it to prepare for what's coming. You can stay and learn, or you can leave. That's your choice. But don't expect me to apologize for trying to keep people alive." The silence stretched. Smith lowered his wand. His face was still pale, but something had shifted in his expression, not acceptance, not yet, but the beginning of understanding. "Fine," he said. "Fine. But when this goes wrong, and it will go wrong, I'll be the one who warned you." He walked out. The door sealed behind him with a soft click. Harry looked around the room at the faces of his remaining students. Fear, yes. Uncertainty. But also something else, something that looked almost like faith. "Anyone else want to leave?" No one moved. "Then let's get back to work." The diadem revealed itself on a Thursday. Harry had been searching for weeks, letting the Phoenix Force guide him through Hogwarts' endless corridors and hidden spaces. The castle was riddled with secrets, rooms that appeared and disappeared, passages that led to impossible places, magic so old it had become part of the stonework itself. The Horcrux was hiding in the room of requirement. Not the training room the DA used, but another configuration entirely, a vast cathedral of junk and forgotten things, piled high with the accumulated detritus of 1,000 years. The Room of Hidden Things, the house elves called it. A place where generations of students had stashed their secrets. Harry walked through the towering stacks alone, the fire burning low in his chest, searching for the wrongness he knew was there. He found it in the back. Perched atop a cabinet like a forgotten crown. Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem. Beautiful and ancient and utterly corrupted, the metal tarnished by the soul fragment it contained. As Harry approached, he felt the Horcrux wake up, felt Tom Riddle's presence stirring within, recognizing the threat. "You," the Horcrux whispered into his mind. "I know what you are. I felt my brother die. You burned him, and now you've come for me. Yes. You think you can destroy us all? You think you can face the Dark Lord with nothing but fire?" The whisper turned mocking. "He is beyond you. Beyond anything. He has conquered death itself. He's hidden pieces of himself in jewelry because he's afraid of dying." Harry reached for the diadem. "That's not conquering death. That's cowering from it." The Horcrux lashed out. Not with magic, Horcruxes couldn't cast spells, but with something worse. Visions, memories, fears given form. Harry saw himself consumed by the Phoenix Force, his humanity burned away until nothing remained but fire and hunger. He saw Hermione turning away from him in disgust. He saw Ron's body broken on a battlefield. He saw everyone he loved dead or fleeing, and himself alone at the center of a ruined world. "This is what you become," the Horcrux hissed. "This is what the fire makes you. A destroyer. A monster. You will burn everything you love, and when there is nothing left to burn, you will burn yourself." The visions were vivid. Terrifying. Almost convincing. But Harry had seen this trick before. "You're lying," he said. "You're trying to make me doubt myself, just like the locket did. But here's the thing, Tom, I've already faced those fears. I've already made my choice." He let the fire rise. "And I choose to burn." The Phoenix Force erupted from his outstretched hands, white gold and absolute. The diadem shrieked, that same awful sound of a soul fragment being unmade, and tried to resist. For a moment, the ancient magic of Ravenclaw's artifact pushed back against the cosmic fire. It wasn't enough. The diadem melted. The Horcrux burned. Another piece of Voldemort's immortality was erased from existence. Harry stood in the ashes, breathing hard, feeling the Phoenix Force settle back into its watchful patience. 3 Horcruxes destroyed. 3 more to go, plus Nagini. He was getting closer. The attack came 2 days later. Harry was in the Great Hall for dinner, surrounded by the normal chaos of a Hogwarts evening. Students laughed and argued and complained about homework. The enchanted ceiling showed a clear night sky, stars glittering in the darkness. Everything seemed peaceful. Then the doors exploded inward. Death Eaters poured through the breach, a dozen of them, maybe more, masks gleaming in the candlelight, wands already casting. The surprise was total. Students screamed and dove for cover. Teachers scrambled to respond. Harry was on his feet before the first curse flew. The fire erupted without conscious thought, forming a barrier between the attackers and the panicked students. Green killing curses splashed against it harmlessly. Torture curses dissolved into sparks. For a moment, the Death Eaters faltered, confused by magic they'd never encountered. Then a figure stepped through the breach, and Harry felt the temperature in the room drop by 20 degrees. Lord Voldemort had come to Hogwarts. He looked different than he had in the graveyard, wounded, somehow, diminished by the loss of his Horcruxes. But his red eyes blazed with fury, and the magic rolling off him was still enough to make the stones shake. Harry Potter. The high, cold voice cut through the chaos. You've been busy. I felt them die, you know. My treasures. My anchors. You've been burning them. I have. Harry stepped forward, letting his fire blaze higher. And I'm not done yet. No. You're not. Voldemort's lipless mouth curved into something like a smile. But neither am I. He raised his wand, and darkness erupted. Not the killing curse, something older, darker, magic that predated the Unforgivables. It hit Harry's fire barrier and pushed. Shadows wrestling with flame in a battle that shattered windows and cracked stone. Around them, chaos erupted. Death Eaters engaged teachers in running battles. Students fled or fought depending on their courage. DA members rallied together, using the skills Harry had taught them to hold back attackers twice their age. But the real fight was in the center of the room. Harry threw everything he had at Voldemort. Fire in every form, directed blasts, spreading waves, concentrated beams hot enough to melt stone. The Dark Lord countered with shadows and curses and magic pulled from sources no sane wizard would touch. They were evenly matched. That was the terrifying thing. Even with the Phoenix Force, even with power beyond anything Harry had imagined, Voldemort was holding him to a standstill. You've grown strong, Voldemort said, deflecting a blast that would have vaporized a normal wizard. But strength isn't enough. I've had 50 years to master dark magic. You've had months. I don't need 50 years. Harry pressed harder, forcing Voldemort back step by step. I just need to burn you once. Do you? Voldemort's smile widened. Then burn me. He lowered his wand. Harry hesitated. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, that Voldemort wouldn't surrender unless he had something planned. But the fire didn't care about traps. The fire only knew that its enemy was vulnerable, that this was the moment to strike. It surged forward without Harry's permission. And Voldemort laughed. Something emerged from the Dark Lord's robes, a crystal the size of a fist, glowing with sickly green light. As Harry's fire touched it, the crystal absorbed it, drinking in the Phoenix Force's power like water into sand. A gift from my new allies, Voldemort said. The consecrators are very creative. They've been hunting your kind for millennia, you know. They have all sorts of toys designed to contain Phoenix fire. Harry felt the crystal pulling at him, trying to drain the Phoenix Force from his body. The fire screamed in rage and pain, fighting to free itself. Did you think you were the only one who could make alliances? Voldemort stepped forward, his wand raised now. The enemy of my enemy, Potter. The consecrators want you dead. I want you dead. It was an easy negotiation. Vane is using you. Harry gritted the words out, fighting to maintain control. The moment I'm gone, he'll come for you. Phoenix hosts aren't his only targets, he wants to eliminate anyone who threatens the natural order. Perhaps. But I'll deal with him after you're dead. Voldemort aimed his wand at Harry's heart. Goodbye, Harry Potter. You were almost worth, the curse never came. A silver knife buried itself in Voldemort's wand arm. The Dark Lord staggered, his concentration breaking. The crystal's pull on Harry weakened just enough for the Phoenix Force to tear free, erupting outward in a blast that sent both Voldemort and his artifact flying. Daphne Greengrass stood in the chaos, her arms still extended from the throw, her aristocratic face set with cold fury. "That was my grandmother's knife," she said. "I'll want it back." Voldemort snarled and reached for the blade with his good hand, then froze as he felt the wards shifting around him. Dumbledore had arrived, power crackling around him like a storm, and the Hogwarts defenses were finally responding to the invasion. "Another time," the Dark Lord hissed. He gestured, and the Death Eaters began disappearing, disapparating in bursts of black smoke that the castle's protections should have prevented. Within seconds, they were gone. The great hall fell silent. Harry stood in the wreckage, his fire slowly banking, his body trembling with exhaustion. Around him, the cost of the battle was becoming clear: overturned tables, shattered windows, scorch marks on every surface. Students injured, some badly. A few teachers down. But no one dead. Not yet. "Harry." Dumbledore's voice was gentle but firm. "We need to talk." The headmaster's office felt smaller than Harry remembered. He sat in the chair across from Dumbledore's desk, the fire still simmering beneath his skin, watching the old wizard settle into place. The portraits on the walls were unusually quiet, their painted eyes fixed on Harry with varying degrees of curiosity and concern. "That was closer than I would have liked," Dumbledore said. "Voldemort has consecrator weapons." Harry's voice was flat. "He's allied with Vane." "So it would seem." Dumbledore's expression was troubled. "An unlikely partnership, but a dangerous one. The consecrators have resources that Voldemort needs, and he offers them a target they've hunted for millennia." "How did they get into Hogwarts?" "The wards should have held." "Yes. They should have." Dumbledore was quiet for a moment. "I believe we have a traitor on the staff. Someone has been feeding information to outside parties, the consecrators, almost certainly, and perhaps the Death Eaters as well." "Professor Vector." Harry remembered the consecrator's attack, the assassin who had known exactly where to find him. "I saw her watching me during the first week of term. She's working with them. Septima Vector has been a trusted colleague for 15 years. But Dumbledore's voice held doubt. "I will investigate." "Do more than investigate." Harry leaned forward. "She's dangerous." "They all are. And we're running out of time." "Time for what?" "To finish this." Harry met Dumbledore's eyes. 3 Horcruxes left. The cup is in Bellatrix Lestrange's vault at Gringotts. Nagini is wherever Voldemort is hiding. And there's one more, one you haven't told me about. Dumbledore went very still. "You've known since the graveyard," Harry continued. "You've known there was a Horcrux in my scar. The Phoenix Force destroyed it when it bonded with me, but you didn't know that would happen. You were preparing me to die." The silence stretched. "Yes," Dumbledore said finally. "I was." Harry had expected anger. Instead, he felt only a cold clarity. "Tell me everything. No more secrets, no more manipulations. Tell me what you know about the Horcruxes, about Voldemort, about all of it." And Dumbledore, for the first time since Harry had known him, told the complete truth. The story took hours. Dumbledore told him about Tom Riddle, the brilliant, charming, utterly hollow boy who had arrived at Hogwarts 60 years ago. About the murders and manipulations that had marked his rise. About the obsession with immortality that had led him to tear his soul apart again and again. He told him about the First War, about the Order of the Phoenix, about the choices that had been made in the name of the greater good. About the prophecy that had marked Harry before his birth. About the night his parents died, and the magic that had saved him, and the fragment of Voldemort's soul that had lodged in his scar. He told him about 15 years of watching and planning, of preparing Harry for a sacrifice that had always seemed inevitable. About the guilt and the grief and the terrible arithmetic of war, where one life might be exchanged for thousands. I told myself it was necessary, Dumbledore said. His voice was rough with something that might have been shame. I told myself that Harry Potter's death would save the wizarding world. I thought, I believed, you believed I was a weapon. Harry's voice was calm. A tool. A piece to be sacrificed when the time was right. Yes. Dumbledore didn't flinch from the accusation. I did. And I was wrong. Not just strategically, morally. I treated you as a means to an end, when you were always your own end. Your own person. I am sorry, Harry. Truly sorry. The fire wanted Harry to be angry. It wanted him to burn this office down, to punish the old man for years of manipulation, to make him feel the betrayal he'd inflicted. But Harry remembered something Hermione had said: the hosts who became monsters stopped seeing people as people. Dumbledore was a person. A flawed, frightened, well-intentioned person who had made terrible decisions for what he believed were good reasons. Burning him wouldn't change the past. It wouldn't undo the years of being used. It would only make Harry into something worse. I don't forgive you, Harry said. I'm not sure I ever will. But I understand why you did it. And I'm choosing to move forward. Relief flickered across Dumbledore's face. That is more generous than I deserve. It's not generosity. It's practicality. Harry stood. I need you. The Order needs you. The students need you. Whatever you've done, you're still one of the most powerful wizards in the world, and we're fighting a war on multiple fronts. I can't afford to make you my enemy. And after the war? Harry considered the question. After the war, we'll see. Maybe I'll have learned to forgive. Maybe I won't. But right now, what matters is stopping Voldemort before more people die. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The Consecrators have an agent in Hogwarts. Find them. And if you can't find them, let me know. The fire is very good at revealing secrets. He left without waiting for a response. The common room was quiet when Harry returned. Most of the Gryffindors were asleep, exhausted by the attack and its aftermath. A few lingered in corners, talking in hushed voices about what they'd seen. The battle had changed things, made the war real in a way that newspaper articles never could. Hermione was waiting by the fire. She looked up as he entered, her face tired but alert. A book lay open in her lap, but she hadn't been reading. She'd been waiting for him. How bad? She asked. Harry sat down beside her, closer than was strictly necessary. Dumbledore told me everything. The Horcruxes, the prophecy, what he was planning for me. All of it. And I didn't burn his office down. A tired smile crossed his face. Felt like progress. Hermione's hand found his. I'm proud of you. For not committing arson. For choosing mercy when you had every right to choose anger. She squeezed his fingers. That's what makes you different, Harry. That's what the Consecrators don't understand. The fire doesn't control you. You control it. Most of the time. He leaned his head back against the couch. Voldemort has their weapons now. That crystal thing, it nearly drained me. If Daphne hadn't intervened. I know. I saw. Hermione's voice tightened. We need to find a counter. Something that protects you from their artifacts. Or I need to destroy them before they can be used. Harry turned to look at her. 3 Horcruxes left. The cup, the snake, and, Dumbledore says there might be something else. Something Voldemort made without realizing it, or something hidden so well even he's forgotten about it. What do you mean, without realizing it? The soul fragments themselves might have created echoes. Pieces of pieces. Dumbledore isn't sure, but he thinks Voldemort's soul was so unstable by the end that his magic started doing things without his conscious control. Hermione frowned. That's terrifying. That's Voldemort. Harry closed his eyes. But first we deal with what we know. The cup is in Gringotts. That means we need to get into the most secure vault in the wizarding world without being caught. Impossible. Probably. He smiled without opening his eyes. Want to help me figure it out anyway? Always. Hermione leaned against his shoulder. But tomorrow. Tonight, you need to rest. The fire can wait. Harry wanted to argue. There was so much to do, so many threats to counter, so little time. But Hermione was warm against him, and the fire was quiet for once, and he was so tired. Tomorrow, he agreed. They sat together by the dying fire until dawn, not talking, just being. Outside, the world prepared for war. But for a few hours, in a quiet common room, two young people held on to something that felt almost like peace. The Ministry fell 3 weeks later. Not to Voldemort, not yet, but to its own corruption, finally exposed beyond any possibility of denial. Harry watched from the shadows as Cornelius Fudge was dragged before the Wizengamot, his face pale with terror, his robes disheveled. The evidence was damning: gold from Death Eater families, orders to suppress information about Voldemort's return, the deployment of Dementors against a 14-year-old boy. The trial was swift. The verdict was unanimous. Fudge was stripped of his office and sentenced to Azkaban for abuse of power and conspiracy to murder. Harry felt no satisfaction. Fudge had been a symptom, not the disease. His removal wouldn't fix the Ministry's deeper rot, the pureblood supremacy baked into its laws, the corruption that ran through every department, the fundamental belief that magic made some people better than others. That would take more than a trial. Rufus Scrimgeour took the minister's chair, a grizzled former Auror with a lion's mane of grey hair and a reputation for toughness. Within days, he had requested a meeting with Harry. The fire told him it was a trap. Not the violent kind, Scrimgeour was smarter than Fudge, but a political one. The new minister wanted to use Harry, to parade him as a symbol, to control the narrative of the war. Harry went anyway. The minister's office was plainer than Fudge's had been. Scrimgeour stood behind his desk, not sitting, watching Harry with the keen eyes of a predator. Mr. Potter. Thank you for coming. You didn't give me much choice. Harry remained standing as well. Your letter implied that refusing would have consequences. A misunderstanding. Scrimgeour's smile didn't reach his eyes. I merely wished to discuss how we might work together. The Ministry and the boy who lived, united against the dark forces threatening our world. You want me to endorse the Ministry. I want you to help me restore confidence in our institutions. The people are frightened. They need to see that their government is taking action, that heroes stand with them. A few public appearances, some carefully chosen statements, no. Scrimgeour's smile flickered. Excuse me. The Ministry sent Dementors to kill me. The Ministry covered up Voldemort's return for months while he rebuilt his forces. The Ministry is rotten from the inside out, and no amount of public relations is going to change that. Harry stepped closer, letting the fire show in his eyes. I won't be your mascot, Minister. I won't help you pretend that everything's fine while the system that created this mess remains unchanged. You're making a mistake, boy. Scrimgeour's voice hardened. The Ministry can be your ally or your obstacle. I'd advise you to choose carefully. I already have. Harry turned toward the door. Clean your house, Scrimgeour. Purge the Death Eater sympathizers. Reform the laws that treat Muggleborns and magical creatures as second-class citizens. Then come talk to me about working together. He walked out. Without looking back. Draco Malfoy found him that evening. Harry was in the room of requirement, running through combat drills with a handful of DA members, when the door opened to admit the last person he expected. Draco looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, a tremor in his hands, robes that hung loose on a frame that had lost weight it couldn't afford to lose. He stood in the doorway like a man facing a firing squad. Potter. The name came out rough. I need to talk to you. The DA members tensed. Ron's wand was already half raised. Let him through, Harry said. Draco crossed the room with visible effort, each step costing him something. When he reached Harry, he didn't speak immediately, just stood there, fighting some internal battle. The Dark Lord has given me a mission. The words were barely above a whisper. I'm supposed to kill Dumbledore. Silence. Why are you telling me this? Harry asked. Because I can't do it. Draco's voice cracked. Because my mother is terrified and my father is in prison and the Dark Lord has made it clear that failure means death for all of us. Because, he swallowed hard. Because I've been watching you, Potter. What you're building. What you're becoming. And I think you might be able to stop him. You want protection. I want my mother to survive. Draco met his eyes, and there was nothing left of the arrogant bully Harry had known for years. Just a frightened boy trying to save his family. I don't care about anything else. Help me protect her, and I'll tell you everything I know. Voldemort's plans, his hiding places, his allies. Everything. Harry studied him. The fire showed him Draco's soul, not pure, not good, but not irredeemable either. A product of his upbringing, his environment, his father's poison. Someone who had made cruel choices because cruel choices were all he'd been taught. Not a monster. Just a person. If you betray us, Harry said quietly, I will burn you alive. Not as a threat, as a promise. Your mother, your family name, everything you've ever cared about will turn to ash. Understand? Draco nodded. He understood. Good. Harry extended his hand. Welcome to the Resistance. After a long moment, Draco took it. The intelligence Draco provided changed everything. Voldemort was hiding in the Malfoy Manor. Harry had suspected as much, but confirmation allowed them to plan. More importantly, Draco knew the Dark Lord's schedule, his security arrangements, his vulnerabilities. Including where he kept Nagini. She never leaves his side, Draco explained, hunched over a map in the room of requirement. Except at night, when she hunts. He lets her loose in the grounds, and she returns by dawn. That's our window. Harry traced the manor's layout with one finger. If we can get to her during the night, destroy the Horcrux, getting onto the grounds is suicide. Draco shook his head. The wards are ancient. Blood magic, mostly. They'll kill anyone who isn't a Malfoy or specifically keyed in. Then key us in. Draco went pale. That would require blood. My blood. If the Dark Lord ever discovered, he won't. Harry's voice was certain. We hit fast, hit hard, and get out before anyone knows we were there. One night. One chance. Can you do it? Draco looked at him for a long moment. Whatever he saw in Harry's eyes seemed to decide something. For my mother, he said. I can do it for her. The raid on Malfoy Manor took place on a moonless night in February. Harry led a small team, himself, Hermione, Ron, and Draco. Anyone else would have been a liability, more people meant more chances for something to go wrong. This was surgical, precise, a strike at the heart of Voldemort's power. Draco's blood got them through the outer wards. The inner defenses were more complicated, but Harry's fire burned through them with contemptuous ease. The Phoenix Force was eager tonight, hungry for the corruption it sensed within the manor's walls. They found Nagini in the gardens, coiled around the base of a fountain, sleeping the sleep of predators who feared nothing. Harry approached alone. The snake's head rose as he drew near, yellow eyes gleaming in the darkness. She was beautiful in her terrible way, 12 feet of scaled death, magical beyond any normal serpent, ancient and patient and utterly evil. "Speaker," she hissed. "You should not be here." "No," Harry replied in Parseltongue. "I shouldn't. But here I am." Nagini struck without warning, faster than thought, her fangs aimed at Harry's throat. The fire caught her mid-lunge. It wasn't like destroying the inanimate Horcruxes. Nagini was alive, conscious, a creature with her own will and her own fragment of Voldemort's soul. She fought back with everything she had, her body thrashing against the flames that wrapped around her, her screams splitting the night. But the Phoenix force was absolute. The Horcrux burned. Nagini burned. The fragment of Tom Riddle's soul trapped within her was unmade, erased from existence like all the others before it. When the fire died, only ash remained. Harry stood over the remains of the Dark Lord's most loyal servant and felt no triumph. Just exhaustion, and the grim knowledge of what still remained. One Horcrux left. The cup in Gringotts. Then Voldemort himself. "Harry." Hermione's voice was urgent. "We need to go. The wards are responding, someone knows we're here." They ran. Behind them, lights flared in the manor's windows. Shouts echoed across the grounds. But by the time the Death Eaters reached the gardens, there was nothing left but ash and the lingering smell of burning. The resistance had struck, and vanished like smoke. Voldemort's reaction was immediate and terrifying. Attacks across Britain. Muggle villages destroyed. Ministry officials murdered in their homes. It was fury given form, the rage of a creature who had felt another piece of himself die. But it was also desperation. "He knows," Harry told the Order at their emergency meeting. "He knows I'm hunting his Horcruxes. He knows I've almost won. Which makes him more dangerous, not less." Moody, the real Moody, finally restored to them, growled from his corner. "A cornered animal fights hardest. Then we don't let him fight." Harry stood, letting his fire illuminate the room. One Horcrux left. Once it's destroyed, Voldemort is mortal. Killable. We end this. Gringotts is impregnable, someone protested. Gringotts is a bank run by goblins who care about gold more than anything else. Harry smiled, and there was nothing friendly about it. "I think we can come to an arrangement." The plan came together over the next week. It was audacious, risky, probably insane. But then, so was everything else they'd tried. And time was running out. The night before the Gringotts raid, Hermione found him on the astronomy tower. She climbed the stairs in silence and sat beside him on the cold stone, looking out at the stars. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Are you scared?" she asked finally. "Terrified." Harry didn't look at her. "If this goes wrong, if we fail, we won't fail. You don't know that." "No." She took his hand. "But I know you. I know what you're capable of. And I know that whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together." Harry turned to face her. The fire illuminated her features, the curve of her cheek, the determination in her eyes, the small smile that seemed to exist just for him. "I love you," he said. "I should have said it sooner. I should have said it every day since you first told me. But I was scared, scared of what I was becoming, scared of what the fire might do to anyone who got too close." "Harry, let me finish." He squeezed her hand. "I'm still scared. I'm probably always going to be scared. But you're worth it. Whatever happens, whatever I have to face, knowing that you're there makes it bearable." Hermione's eyes were bright with tears, but she was smiling. "That's a much better compliment than the last one. I've been practicing." She laughed, a real laugh, bright and warm, and then she kissed him. The fire rose in response, but not to burn. It wrapped around them both like a blessing, like a promise. For a moment, Harry felt nothing but warmth and hope and the absolute certainty that this was worth fighting for. When they finally pulled apart, Hermione was glowing faintly, touched by the Phoenix Force's light. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said, "we face it together." "Together," Harry agreed. They stayed on the tower until dawn, watching the stars will overhead, holding on to something that felt almost like peace. Tomorrow, they would raid Gringotts. Tomorrow, they would face the final Horcrux. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, they had this. And it was enough. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, What Must Be Sacrificed. The goblin's name was Ragnarok, and he looked at Harry with the calculating eyes of a creature who had measured wealth for 300 years. "You want access to the Lestrange vault," he said. His voice was like gravel scraping against stone. "A vault that belongs to one of the oldest pureblood families in Britain. A vault protected by enchantments that have killed better thieves than you." "I'm not a thief." Harry sat across from the goblin in a private chamber deep beneath Gringotts, far from the marble halls where ordinary wizards conducted their business. "I'm offering a trade." "What could you possibly offer that would interest the goblin nation?" Harry reached into his robes and withdrew a small bag. He appended it onto the table between them. Gold coins spilled out, but not galleons. These were older, stranger, stamped with symbols that made Ragnarok's eyes widen despite centuries of practiced neutrality. "Founder's gold," Harry said. "Minted by Helga Hufflepuff herself, according to the records in the Hogwarts archives. There are 47 coins in that bag. I'm told they're worth approximately 1,000,000 galleons to the right collector." Ragnarok's long fingers reached for one of the coins, then stopped. "Where did you get these?" "The Room of Requirement. Hogwarts has accumulated a lot of valuable things over the centuries. Most of it is junk, but some of it." Harry gestured at the gold. "I'm prepared to offer more. Much more. In exchange for 1 hour of unsupervised access to the Lestrange vault." "You're asking me to betray a client." "I'm asking you to choose sides." Harry leaned forward, letting the fire show in his eyes. "Voldemort is coming back to full power, Ragnarok. When he does, how do you think he'll treat the goblins? He doesn't see you as allies, he sees you as servants. Tools to be used and discarded. And you see us differently. I see you as people. Clever, dangerous, proud people who deserve better than the scraps wizards have been throwing you for centuries." Harry held the goblin's gaze. "Help me destroy Voldemort, and I'll make sure the next government remembers who its friends were. Laws can change. Treaties can be renegotiated. The Goblin Nation has been waiting for an opportunity like this for 1,000 years." The silence stretched. Ragnarok picked up one of the Founder's coins, turning it over in his fingers. His expression was unreadable, but Harry could feel the calculation happening behind those dark eyes. 1 hour, the goblin said finally. "Unsupervised. And when Voldemort is dead, you will personally advocate for goblin representation in the Wizengamot." "Done. And if you're caught, if anything goes wrong, the Goblin Nation knows nothing of this arrangement." "Agreed." Ragnarok's thin lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Then we have a deal, Harry Potter. May your fire burn bright enough to keep your promises." The descent into the depths of Gringotts was like traveling back in time. The upper levels were modern by wizarding standards, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, goblins in well-tailored suits conducting business with professional efficiency. But as the cart plunged deeper, the stone grew older and the magic grew wilder. Harry rode alone. Hermione had wanted to come, had argued, actually, with a ferocity that made the fire stir in appreciation, but this was something he needed to do himself. The fewer people involved, the better. Besides, if something went wrong, he didn't want her anywhere near the blast radius. The Lestrange vault was on the lowest level, protected by dragons and curses and enchantments that had been accumulating for generations. The cart stopped at a platform of rough-hewn stone, and Harry stepped out into darkness. The dragon was the first obstacle. It was old and scarred, its scales dulled by decades of imprisonment, its eyes milky with cataracts. Chains bound it to the cavern floor, and it flinched at Harry's approach, not because it feared him, but because it had been taught to fear everything. The fire stirred with something that felt almost like sympathy. "I'm not here to hurt you," Harry said quietly. "I'm just passing through." The dragon's head turned toward his voice. It couldn't see him properly, but it could feel the heat radiating from his skin, could sense the power burning beneath his surface. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the dragon lowered its head and let him pass. The vault door was massive, 20 feet of enchanted metal covered in runes that made Harry's teeth ache. He pressed his hand against it and let the fire flow. The enchantments fought back. They were designed to kill intruders, to trap them, to alert the goblins to any breach. But they weren't designed for the Phoenix Force. They couldn't be. The Phoenix Force existed outside the rules that governed normal magic. The door melted. Inside, the vault was a treasure hunter's dream. Gold piled to the ceiling. Jewels scattered like candy. Artifacts that radiated magic, some of it light and some of it very, very dark. Harry ignored all of it. The cup was on a high shelf in the back, gleaming softly in the light of his fire. Helga Hufflepuff's cup, twisted into something obscene by the fragment of soul it contained. As Harry approached, he felt it wake up, felt Tom Riddle's awareness stirring within. "You again." The voice was different from the others, older, somehow, more resigned. "I felt my brothers and sisters die. I knew you would come for me eventually. Then you know how this ends. I know how you think it ends." A ripple of dark amusement. "But you're wrong, Harry Potter. You're so close to the truth, and you can't even see it. Enlighten me. The Dark Lord made more than you know. More than even he knows." The cup seemed to pulse with malevolent light. "You can destroy every Horcrux, burn every fragment of his soul, and it still won't be enough. Because the greatest Horcrux isn't an object. It's an idea." Harry reached for the cup. "Riddles and games. That's all you have left. Ask Dumbledore about Albania. Ask him about the diary and what it really was. Ask him." The fire consumed the cup before it could finish. The Horcrux screamed as it died, but the sound was almost sad, a creature that had known its fate and gone to meet it anyway. When the flames died, only a puddle of molten gold remained. 4 Horcruxes destroyed. 5, counting the one in Harry's scar. That left only Nagini. No. Nagini was already gone. He'd destroyed her at Malfoy Manor. Which meant Harry stood in the ruins of the Lestrange vault, surrounded by treasure he didn't want, and felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. The cup had been lying. It had to be. Voldemort had made 7 Horcruxes, and Harry had destroyed them all. The diary, the ring, the locket, the diadem, the cup, Nagini, and the fragment in his own scar. 7. That was the number. That was what Dumbledore had said. But the cup's words echoed in his mind, more than even he knows. What if Dumbledore was wrong? The escape from Gringotts was almost anticlimactic. Harry walked out the way he'd come in, past the dragon that watched him with something like hope, past the ancient stone and the wild magic, past the goblins who carefully didn't see him. Ragnarok had kept his word. The path was clear. He emerged into Diagon Alley as dawn broke over London, the spring air cool against his fire-warmed skin. The shopping district was quiet at this hour, a few early risers, some shop owners preparing for the day, nothing out of the ordinary. Then the screaming started. Harry's head snapped up. Black smoke was rising from the direction of the leaky cauldron, and he could feel magic, dark magic, tearing through the air. He ran. The attack was already over by the time he arrived. The leaky cauldron's front wall had been blown inward, tables and chairs scattered like toys. Tom the barman lay in a pool of blood, his eyes staring at nothing. 3 other bodies were visible in the wreckage. And carved into the floor, burned into the wood with dark fire, was a message: Hogwarts next. The emergency meeting at Grimmauld Place was chaos. Order members shouted over each other, arguing about defenses and evacuations and whether to move the students to safety. Dumbledore sat at the head of the table, his face grave, saying nothing while the debate raged around him. Harry stood by the window, watching the argument with growing frustration. They were wasting time. Every minute spent talking was a minute Voldemort could use to prepare. Enough. He didn't raise his voice, but the fire rose with the word, and suddenly the room was silent. Voldemort is coming to Hogwarts. That's not a threat, it's a fact. He's lost almost all his Horcruxes, and he knows I'm the one destroying them. He's going to throw everything he has at us because he has no other choice. We should evacuate the students, McGonagall said. Get them to safety before there is no safety. Harry turned to face the room. Voldemort has Death Eaters, Dementors, Giants, and whatever else he's recruited over the past months. If we run, he'll hunt us down one group at a time. Our only chance is to make a stand. You're talking about using children as soldiers, Molly Weasley said, her voice sharp with fear. I'm talking about giving them a chance to fight for their own survival. Harry's voice softened. Mrs. Weasley, I know what you're feeling. I know you want to protect them. But the war is coming whether we're ready or not. The question is whether we face it together or get picked off separately. Harry is right. Dumbledore spoke for the first time, his voice cutting through the remaining tension. Hogwarts is the most defensible position in Britain. Its wards have stood for 1,000 years. If we are to make a stand, it must be there. And the students who can't fight? McGonagall asked. The younger years, the ones who aren't prepared. We evacuate them through the Room of Requirement. There's a passage to Hogsmeade that even Voldemort doesn't know about. Harry had spent weeks mapping the castle's secrets. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. But anyone who wants to stay and fight, they'll have that choice. The room was quiet. How long do we have? Kingsley Shacklebolt asked. Harry looked at Dumbledore, who closed his eyes for a moment, consulting sources Harry couldn't see. 3 days, the headmaster said. Perhaps less. Voldemort is gathering his forces. When he moves, it will be with everything he has. Then we have 3 days to prepare. Harry moved toward the door. I need to get back to Hogwarts. There's something I have to do before the battle. Harry. Dumbledore's voice stopped him at the threshold. What did the cup show you? Harry turned. The old wizard's eyes were knowing, concerned. It said there were more Horcruxes than we knew. More than Voldemort himself knows. Harry met Dumbledore's gaze. Is that possible? A long pause. I have a theory, Dumbledore said slowly. Something I have not shared because I was not certain, and because the implications are troubling. Tell me. Not here. Come to my office tonight. There are things I need to show you, memories, documents, evidence I've gathered over many years. Dumbledore's expression was unreadable. And Harry, prepare yourself. What I have to tell you may change everything. The Great Hall was transformed. Students worked in organized groups, reinforcing windows and preparing defenses under the direction of DA members who had become de facto squad leaders. House rivalries had dissolved in the face of common threat. Slytherins worked alongside Gryffindors, Ravenclaws strategized with Hufflepuffs. Harry walked among them, offering encouragement, answering questions, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. The fire burned steady in his chest, eager for the battle to come, but Harry kept it banked. These students needed a leader, not a weapon. They're scared, Hermione said, falling into step beside him. But they're also ready. You've given them something to believe in. I've given them a target on their backs. You've given them agency. She took his hand, heedless of the students around them. For the first time, they get to choose whether to run or fight. That matters, Harry. That matters more than you know. They stopped by a window overlooking the grounds. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. The cup said something, Harry told her. About Horcruxes we don't know about. Dumbledore says he has a theory. What kind of theory? I don't know yet. He wants to see me tonight. Harry squeezed her hand. But whatever it is, whatever's coming, I need you to promise me something. What? If things go wrong, if I lose control, if the fire takes over, I need you to stop me. He turned to face her, his expression serious. You said you'd be my anchor. But sometimes anchors have to do hard things. If I become what the consecrators fear, if I become a monster. Harry, promise me. Hermione's eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her voice was steady. I promise. But it won't come to that. How do you know? Because I know you. She reached up to touch his face. Because the fire chose well when it chose you. Because some things are more powerful than cosmic entities and dark lords and ancient prophecies. Like what? She smiled. Like love, you idiot. Like friendship and loyalty and the absolute stubborn refusal to give up. You have all of that, Harry. You always have. The fire stirred at her words, not with hunger, but with something gentler. Something that felt almost like agreement. I don't deserve you, Harry said. Probably not. Her smile widened. But you're stuck with me anyway. Now come on, you have a meeting with Dumbledore, and I have defensive wards to reinforce. She kissed him quickly and walked away, leaving Harry alone with the sunset and the weight of everything to come. Dumbledore's office was quiet when Harry arrived. The headmaster sat behind his desk, looking older than Harry had ever seen him. A pensieve rested on the polished wood, its surface swirling with silver light. Sit down, Harry. This may take some time. Harry took the chair across from him. The cup said Voldemort made more Horcruxes than he knew. How is that possible? It isn't. Not exactly. Dumbledore touched the pensieve with one long finger. But the cup was not lying. There is another fragment of Tom Riddle's soul in the world, one he did not create deliberately, one that even he may not be aware of. I don't understand. Do you know what a Horcrux truly is? Not the spell, not the ritual, the fundamental nature of the thing. Harry shook his head. A Horcrux is a wound in reality. When a soul is torn by murder and then deliberately divided, it creates a kind of scar on the fabric of existence. The fragment that is sealed away is protected, yes, but it is also unstable. Volatile. Prone to leaking. Leaking how? Through proximity. Through magical resonance. Through the kind of intense emotional and magical connection that exists between objects that have been bound together by dark magic. Dumbledore's eyes were grave. Harry, when Voldemort created the diary, his first Horcrux, he did something no one had done before. He created a Horcrux that could think, that could interact with the world, that could possess another soul. Ginny. In second year. Yes. And when Tom Riddle possessed Ginny Weasley, when he began to drain her life force to restore his own, something happened. A connection was formed. A fragment of the diary's essence, of Voldemort's essence, lodged itself somewhere it was never meant to go. The cold certainty returned, stronger than before. Ginny, Harry whispered. There's a piece of Voldemort in Ginny. A very small piece. Dormant, unaware, nothing like the active Horcruxes you've destroyed. But present. Connected to Voldemort in ways neither of them consciously perceive. Dumbledore's voice was heavy with grief. I have spent years hoping I was wrong, Harry. Years searching for another explanation. But the evidence is irrefutable. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell her? Because I did not want it to be true. Because I hoped, foolishly, perhaps, that destroying the other Horcruxes would somehow unmake this one as well. Dumbledore closed his eyes. Because I am a coward, Harry. I have always been a coward when it comes to facing the consequences of my inaction. Harry stood. The fire was rising, and not in a controlled way. You let her walk around for 3 years with a piece of Voldemort's soul inside her. You knew, and you said nothing. I knew it was possible. I did not know it was certain until very recently, when you what? Dumbledore opened his eyes. They were wet with tears. When I saw how the diary's destruction affected her. You weren't there, Harry, you were unconscious, recovering from your encounter with the basilisk. But Ginny, when the diary burned, she screamed. Not from relief. From loss. As if something had been torn from her. That doesn't prove, no. But this does. Dumbledore touched the pensieve. I have a memory here. A diagnostic spell I performed on Ginny last year, without her knowledge. I had to know. I had to be certain. Harry stared at the swirling silver. Show me. The memory was clinical, almost detached. Harry watched Dumbledore cast spell after spell over a sleeping Ginny Weasley, complex diagnostics, ancient magics designed to reveal the deepest secrets of the soul. The results were displayed in colors and patterns that Harry didn't fully understand, but the conclusion was unmistakable. A dark smear at the center of her being. Small, dormant, but undeniably present. A fragment of Tom Riddle. The memory ended, and Harry found himself back in Dumbledore's office, his hands shaking with rage and horror. Can I destroy it? His voice came out rough. The way I destroyed the others? Perhaps. But Ginny is not a cup or a locket. She is a living person, with a soul of her own. Any attempt to burn away the fragment might kill her, or worse, might release it into the world as something far more dangerous. Then what do we do? I don't know. Dumbledore's admission was barely a whisper. I have researched every option, consulted every source. There may be a way to extract the fragment without harming her, but I have not found it. And now, with Voldemort coming, with the battle almost upon us. We're out of time. Yes. Harry stood at the window, looking out at the darkened grounds. Somewhere out there, Ginny Weasley was sleeping, unaware of the horror nesting inside her. Unaware that the boy she'd had a crush on for years might be the one who had to kill her. No. He refused to accept that. There has to be another way. Harry turned back to Dumbledore. The Phoenix Force is destruction and rebirth. If I can destroy the fragment and rebuild what it damages, heal her soul the way I heal wounds, it's never been done. A lot of things I've done have never been done. Harry's voice was fierce. I won't kill her, Dumbledore. I won't sacrifice an innocent girl because it's convenient. There has to be another way, and I'm going to find it. Even if it means letting Voldemort survive. Even then. Harry held the old wizard's gaze. I know what you're thinking. The greater good. One life for millions. But you were wrong about me, and you're wrong about this. The moment we start deciding who's expendable, we become exactly what we're fighting against. Dumbledore was quiet for a long moment. You are a better person than I ever was, Harry. His voice was soft. I hope you can save her. I truly do. I will. Harry moved toward the door. And when this is over, you're going to tell her the truth. All of it. She deserves to know what was done to her. Yes. She does. Harry left without looking back. The night before the battle, Sirius found Harry on the astronomy tower. His godfather climbed the stairs with the easy grace of someone who had spent too many years as a dog, settling beside Harry on the cold stone without speaking. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the stars. Dumbledore told me about Ginny, Sirius said finally. About what you're planning to try. He shouldn't have. Probably not. But he's worried about you, Harry. We all are. Sirius turned to look at him. The Phoenix Force is powerful, but it's not omnipotent. If you try to heal her and it goes wrong, then I'll deal with the consequences. And if the consequence is your death, or hers, or both. Harry didn't answer immediately. The fire simmered in his chest, offering no guidance. This was a human choice, a human risk. The Phoenix Force didn't care about individual lives, it cared about the cycle, about destruction and rebirth on a cosmic scale. But Harry cared. That was the difference. That was what made him human despite the fire burning inside him. My parents died to protect me, he said. Finally. They could have run. Could have saved themselves. But they chose to stay, to fight, to give me a chance at life. He met Sirius's eyes. If they could make that sacrifice for me, how can I do any less for Ginny? For anyone? Sirius was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, a rough, surprised sound. You sound like James. He was always doing stupid, noble things that scared the hell out of the rest of us. His expression softened. He'd be proud of you, Harry. Lily too. They'd be so damn proud. I hope so. I know so. Sirius clapped him on the shoulder. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. You too. Sirius started down the stairs, then paused. Harry. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever you have to do, you're not alone. Remember that. He disappeared into the darkness, leaving Harry with the stars and the weight of everything to come. Dawn came gray and cold, the sky heavy with clouds that seemed to press down on the castle like a physical weight. Harry stood in the entrance hall, surrounded by everyone who had chosen to fight. Students, teachers, order members, even some parents who had refused to evacuate with the younger children. They looked to him with expressions ranging from terror to determination to something that might have been faith. Voldemort is coming, Harry said. His voice carried through the hall, amplified by magic. He's bringing everything he has, Death Eaters, Dementors, giants, dark creatures we don't even have names for. He's coming because he's desperate, because he's dying, because we've taken almost everything he has. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some of you are scared. That's okay. I'm scared too. But fear isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It means you understand what's at stake. Harry let the fire rise just enough to be visible, a soft glow beneath his skin. What we do today matters. Not just for us, not just for Hogwarts, but for everyone who comes after. We're fighting for the right to live in a world where power doesn't make you better than everyone else. Where blood doesn't determine your worth. Where anyone can be a hero if they choose to be. He looked around at the faces before him, some so young, some older than he'd ever be. I can't promise we'll all survive. I can't promise anything except this, I will fight beside you. I will protect as many of you as I can. And if we fall fighting for something worth dying for. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Neville Longbottom stepped forward. His face was pale but determined, his wand clenched in his fist. For Hogwarts, he said. For Hogwarts, others echoed, first a few, then dozens, then the whole hall. Harry felt the fire respond to their courage, felt it reach out and touch each of them with just a hint of its warmth. Not amplifying their magic, not this time, but acknowledging it. Honoring it. Take your positions, he said. And remember, together, we're stronger than any Dark Lord who ever lived. They dispersed to their assigned locations, and Harry watched them go with a mixture of pride and terror. This was it. The final battle. The end of everything. Or the beginning. The Death Eaters came at noon. They uprot onto the grounds in a wave of black robes and silver masks, hundreds of them, more than Harry had ever seen gathered in one place. Giants lumbered behind them, clubs dragging on the ground. Dementors swarmed overhead, their presence turning the spring day cold and dark. And at the center of it all, pale as death and terrible as winter, stood Lord Voldemort. Harry walked out to meet him. He passed through the castle's wards without slowing, the fire burning bright around him, illuminating the courtyard in shades of gold and white. Behind him, the defenders of Hogwarts took their positions. Before him, the armies of darkness waited. Voldemort stepped forward, his snake-like face twisted with something between rage and triumph. Harry Potter. The high, cold voice cut through the silence. You've been busy. Not busy enough. You're still alive. For now. Voldemort's red eyes gleamed. But not for much longer. I have an army. I have power. And I have something else, something you don't know about. Your mysterious eighth Horcrux. Harry kept his voice steady, even as his heart raced. I already know about Ginny. I know what the diary did to her. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered across Voldemort's face. Surprise? Fear? Clever boy. You've done your research. The Dark Lord's smile returned, colder than before. But knowing isn't the same as doing anything about it. She's still connected to me, Potter. Part of me lives inside her, whether you like it or not. And as long as she survives, so do I. Then I'll find a way to free her. Will you? Voldemort laughed, a terrible, inhuman sound. The Phoenix Force burns what is corrupt. That girl is corrupt to her very soul. Even if you wanted to save her, your fire would consume her the moment you tried. You don't know what I'm capable of. No. Perhaps not. Voldemort raised his wand. But I know what I'm capable of. And today, Harry Potter, you're going to learn as well. He gestured, and the army charged. The Battle of Hogwarts was chaos made manifest. Harry threw himself into the fighting, the Phoenix Force unleashed like never before. Death Eaters fell before him, their curses splashing harmlessly against shields of living fire. Giants stumbled and collapsed as flames wrapped around their legs. Dementors, dozens of them, burned to nothing as Harry passed, unmade by the cosmic truth they had violated. But there were so many. Everywhere Harry looked, people were fighting and dying. Students fell to curses they shouldn't have had to face. Teachers sacrificed themselves to protect their charges. Order members battled against overwhelming odds, giving ground step by bloody step. He couldn't save everyone. The fire burned and burned, but there was always more darkness, always more enemies, always more death. Sirius found him in the courtyard, back to back, fighting off a group of Death Eaters who had broken through the main line. Harry. His godfather's voice was rough with exhaustion. Voldemort's heading for the Room of Requirement. He's going after the students who couldn't evacuate in time. The cold certainty struck like a blow. Ginny was in the Room of Requirement. She'd volunteered to help with the evacuation, to guide the younger students through the passage to Hogsmeade. Voldemort knew exactly where she was. Take over here. Harry shouted, already running. Don't let them reach the Great Hall. He sprinted through corridors that had become battlefields, leaping over debris and ducking under curses. The fire guided him, burning a path through any enemy foolish enough to get in his way. The 7th floor was quiet. Too quiet. The tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy hung scorched but intact, and the hidden entrance to the Room of Requirement was open. Harry stepped inside and found nightmare. The room had configured itself into the evacuation corridor, a long stone passage that should have led to safety. Instead, it led to Voldemort. The Dark Lord stood at the far end, his wand pressed to Ginny Weasley's throat. A dozen younger students huddled behind her, too terrified to run. Her eyes met Harry's, and he saw fear, but also defiance. She was still fighting. Even now. Predictable, Potter. Voldemort's voice echoed off the stone walls. You always were predictable. The noble hero, rushing to save the innocent. It's touching, really. Let her go. Or what? You'll burn me? Voldemort laughed. You already tried that, remember? And here I am. You can destroy my Horcruxes, but you can't destroy me, not as long as this girl lives. She's my insurance, Potter. My guarantee. The fragment in her isn't a Horcrux. It's not protecting you. Isn't it? The Dark Lord's red eyes glittered. Perhaps not in the traditional sense. But it is part of me, my memories, my magic, my essence. And that connection, it can be strengthened. Right now, at this moment, I could pour my consciousness into her. Burn this body and I'll simply take hers. Harry's blood went cold. You're bluffing. Am I? Voldemort pressed his wand harder against Ginny's throat. Try me. Let your fire loose. See what happens when you destroy this body and have nowhere else to go. The room was silent except for the soft sobs of the younger students. Harry's mind raced, searching for options, finding none. If he attacked, Voldemort would flee into Ginny. If he didn't attack, Voldemort would escape or kill them all anyway. Either way, he lost. Unless you want to survive, Harry said slowly. That's all you've ever wanted. Immortality. Continuation. Everything you've done, everything you've sacrificed, it's all been about cheating death. What of it? I can give you what you want. Harry stepped forward, hands raised. The Phoenix Force is immortality, Voldemort. True immortality, not your pathetic half-life, not soul fragments scattered across trinkets, but genuine eternal existence. You felt it when we fought. You know what it is. Something shifted in Voldemort's expression. Interest, despite himself. Go on. Bond with me. Willingly, consensually, a merge, not a fight. The Phoenix Force will accept you. It will burn away your broken soul and remake you into something that can never die. You're lying. I'm offering you everything you've ever wanted. Harry let the fire rise, let it show its full glory. Look at me, Voldemort. Look at what I've become. Do you want to fight me forever, running and hiding, your Horcruxes picked off one by one? Or do you want to become like me? The silence stretched. You would share this power? Voldemort's voice was barely a whisper. With me? No. Harry smiled. I'd let you think you were taking it. Right up until the moment it burned you to nothing. Voldemort's eyes widened, and Harry struck. The fire erupted not at Voldemort, but at the connection. Harry had never tried this before, had never even considered it possible, but the Phoenix Force responded to his will, to his desperate need, and it reached through the space between bodies and souls with surgical precision. It found the thread that connected Voldemort to Ginny. The fragment of soul, the corruption, the link that the Dark Lord planned to use as an escape route. And it burned. Voldemort screamed. Not a human scream, something far worse, the sound of a creature being torn apart at the fundamental level. His grip on Ginny loosened as agony consumed him, as the fire burned through the connection he'd thought would save him. Harry didn't stop. He reached deeper, past the connection, into the fragment itself. He could feel it now, small, terrified, fighting to survive. Tom Riddle's essence, corrupted beyond recognition, a poison that had been sleeping in Ginny's soul for 3 years. I'm sorry, Harry thought. Not to Voldemort, to the girl who had carried this burden without knowing. This is going to hurt. He burned the fragment away. Ginny screamed too, a brief, terrible sound, and collapsed. But the fire caught her before she hit the ground, wrapped around her in a cocoon of warmth and light. Not burning. Healing. Filling the void where the corruption had been with something cleaner. Rebirth. That was what the Phoenix Force was. Not just destruction, rebirth. When Harry opened his eyes, Ginny lay unconscious but breathing on the stone floor. The younger students were staring at him with expressions of awe and terror. And Voldemort was still standing. Barely. His pale face had gone grey, his red eyes dimmed to something almost human. The connection was gone, the fragment was gone, but the Dark Lord himself remained. Wounded. Mortal. But alive. You. Voldemort's voice was a rasp. You destroyed it. You actually destroyed it. Yes. I'm mortal now. Completely mortal. The Dark Lord laughed, a broken, disbelieving sound. 70 years of planning. 7 Horcruxes. All of it, gone. Yes. Voldemort raised his wand with a trembling hand. Then I have nothing left to lose. Neither do I. The final duel lasted exactly 3 seconds. Harry didn't hold back. He couldn't afford to, couldn't risk Voldemort escaping, finding some other way to cheat death, starting the whole cycle over again. The Phoenix Force erupted from him in a wave of absolute destruction, cosmic fire that unmade everything it touched. Voldemort tried to defend himself. Cast a shield, a curse, something. But he was mortal now, truly mortal, and mortal magic was nothing against the fire of creation and destruction. He burned. Not quickly, the fire wanted him to feel it, to understand what he had done to deserve this end. But not slowly either, because Harry was still human enough to want mercy even for monsters. When it was over, there was nothing left. No body. No ash. No trace that Tom Marvolo Riddle had ever existed. Lord Voldemort was gone. The battle ended within the hour. Without their master, the Death Eaters lost cohesion. Some fled. Some surrendered. Some fought to the death, but they were outnumbered now, and the defenders of Hogwarts had seen their enemy fall. Harry didn't participate in the cleanup. He sat beside Ginny's unconscious form, watching her breathe, waiting for her to wake up. The fire was quiet inside him, satisfied, maybe, or just exhausted. Hermione found him there. She didn't say anything. Just sat down beside him and took his hand, her presence warm and solid and real. "Is it over?" she asked finally. "The war is. The rest." Harry shook his head. "There's still so much to do. The ministry needs to be rebuilt. The laws need to change. The people who supported Voldemort need to be brought to justice. But not today. No. Not today." Ginny stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, confused and unfocused at first, then sharpening as she recognized Harry's face above her. "Harry?" Her voice was rough. "What happened?" I felt something. It's gone." Harry helped her sit up. "The thing that was inside you, the fragment from the diary, it's gone. Voldemort used it as a connection, as a way to escape. I had to destroy it to stop him. The connection." Ginny's hand went to her chest, over her heart. "I can't feel him anymore. I didn't even know I could feel him, but now, it's quiet. It's finally quiet." Tears spilled down her cheeks, not from grief, but from relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." Harry didn't trust himself to speak. He just nodded and helped her to her feet, and together they walked out of the room of requirement into a world that had finally been freed. The funeral pyres burned for 3 days. Harry attended every one of them. He owed that much to the fallen, to acknowledge their sacrifice, to remember their names. To ensure they weren't forgotten. The list was long. Colin Creevey. Lavender Brown. Fred Weasley. Nymphadora Tonks. Remus Lupin. 53 others, students and teachers and order members who had given their lives to stop the darkness. Sirius had survived, somehow. So had Dumbledore, though the old wizard looked more frail than ever. McGonagall, Hagrid, most of the DA, battered and bloodied, but alive. The Weasleys gathered around Fred's pyre, their grief a physical presence that even the Phoenix Force couldn't burn away. Harry stood with them, Hermione on one side and Ginny on the other, and let himself feel the loss. He could have prevented it. If he'd been faster, stronger, better, if he'd ended Voldemort sooner, Fred might still be alive. Colin might still be alive. All of them might still be alive. You cannot save everyone, the fire whispered. That is not what you are for. But I wanted to, Harry thought back. I wanted to save all of them. Yes. That is what makes you human. The pyre burned higher, and Harry let the flames carry his grief into the sky. A week after the battle, Dumbledore called Harry to his office one final time. The headmaster looked like he'd aged a decade in the past few days. His hand, the one that had been cursed, that had never fully healed, was worse than ever, blackened almost to the elbow. "You're dying," Harry said. "Yes." Dumbledore smiled, but it was tired. "The curse has been spreading since I found the ring. I had hoped, but it doesn't matter now. What matters is what comes next." "What do you mean?" "The war is over, but the work has just begun. The ministry is in chaos. The pureblood families are scrambling for position. And the people, the ordinary witches and wizards of Britain, are looking for someone to lead them forward. You." "No." Dumbledore shook his head. "I am too old, too compromised, too associated with the failures of the past. They need someone new. Someone who represents the future they want to build." Harry felt the words coming before they were spoken. "No. Harry, I won't be their leader. Their king. Whatever you're about to suggest, no." Harry stood, pacing to the window. "I fought to end tyranny, not to replace it with my own. That's not what I'm asking." Dumbledore's voice was gentle. "I'm not asking you to rule, Harry. I'm asking you to help. To use your influence, your status, your power to push for the changes we need. Not as a king, as a conscience. A voice for the people who've never had one. There are others who could do that. Hermione. Kingsley. Hell, even Daphne Greengrass has more political experience than I do. And they will help. But you have something none of them have." Dumbledore met his eyes. "You have the Phoenix Force. You have destroyed the darkest wizard of our age. When you speak, people listen, not because they fear you, but because they believe in you. They shouldn't. I'm just Harry." "Yes." Dumbledore smiled. "You are. And that's exactly why they should." Harry was quiet for a long time, looking out at the grounds where the final battle had been fought. The scars were still visible, scorched earth, shattered windows, graves freshly dug in the shadow of the castle. "I won't rule," he said finally. "But I'll help. As long as it takes to build something better. That's all I ask." Harry turned back to the headmaster, taking in the wasted form, the darkened hand, the fading light in those brilliant blue eyes. "How long do you have?" "A few months. Perhaps less." Dumbledore's expression was peaceful. "But I find I'm not afraid, Harry. I've had more than my share of time. And I've seen, at last, a future worth believing in. You manipulated me for years. Used me as a weapon. Planned for me to die. Yes. And now you want me to carry on your legacy." "No." Dumbledore shook his head. "I want you to build your own. Something better than anything I could have created. Something worthy of the sacrifice so many have made." Harry considered the old man before him, brilliant, flawed, dangerous, kind. A hero and a villain both, depending on who was telling the story. "I don't forgive you," Harry said. "I know. But I understand why you did what you did. And I'm choosing to move forward." Dumbledore's smile was genuine this time, warm and sad and proud all at once. "That," he said, "is more than I deserve." That night, Harry found himself at the edge of the Forbidden Forest, watching the stars emerge from the fading twilight. Hermione found him there, as she always did. She'd developed an instinct for knowing when he needed her, or maybe it was the Phoenix Force, reaching out to the person who had become its anchor. "It's beautiful," she said, settling beside him. "I never really noticed before. There was always something to study, something to worry about. There's still plenty to worry about. I know. But not tonight." She leaned against his shoulder. "Tonight, we just exist." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky darken and the stars brighten. The fire burned low in Harry's chest, content and quiet, as if it too understood that some moments were meant for peace. "What happens now?" Hermione asked eventually. "Dumbledore wants me to help rebuild. Not as a leader, just as a voice. Someone who pushes for the changes we need. And you said yes?" "I said I'd try." Harry turned to look at her. "But I'm not doing it alone. I need you, Hermione. Not just as a friend, as a partner. Someone who can tell me when I'm being an idiot, who can see the things I miss, who can keep me human when the fire gets too loud." "I think that's the worst marriage proposal in recorded history." Harry blinked. I wasn't, I know." She was laughing now, her eyes bright with joy and tears. "But maybe someday. When we're ready. When the world is a little less on fire." "Yeah." Harry felt something loosen in his chest, something he hadn't even known was tight. "Someday." They sat together until the moon rose, two young people at the edge of tomorrow, holding on to something that felt like hope. The fire burned on, patient and eternal, waiting for whatever came next. And for the first time in a very long time, Harry thought it might be something good.